live on YouTube, and listen back on Spotify. This is the World of Football podcast.
Hello.
Black baby.
Gravy Reece at the wheel.
Hello. Welcome to the World of Football podcast, baby. Welcome to the podcast. Yes, we do have our night music on. Welcome everyone, one and all, to the World of Football podcast for your Reece edition of the month. I'm up, so we're going to get down to business. But before we do, let's get into the introductions. So it's me, your host for the night, Reece, the entertaining dazzler of the show, the channel itself, the chaotic one. Onto my side is Nathan, the Welshman, who hates Swansea, supports Cardiff, so we're all doomed. and below me,
performance at the weekend. Oh my god!
Exactly. And below me is the mafia man from Albania, the man that has the look of Christ but the words of Satan. So we're going to dive into the real introductions. So Nathan, how are we?
I am very well, minus obviously the result of the weekend. How on earth do you lose against a Norwich side, even worse, a David Wagner side that hasn't won in 6 games? That is ridiculous.
We called it. We said it last week. We said this would happen.
You did. I mean, this man's predictions are absolutely on the nose, but I did not believe you guys. And if you saw the start of that video, like, I was so confident going into that game. And then, of course, Cardiff City does a Cardiff City, baby.
If you don't listen, you get dealt with.
You brought that on yourself, Nathan.
I did.
I mean, to be fair, I tell Julio this every single week when he doesn't listen, and every time I'm proven right. So now it's your turn. Julio, how are we?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Looking forward to another evening. 2 absolute titans of the channel in Nathan and Hella in the comments, and obviously you're hosting, Reece, so that's all right, I suppose.
My first of 2 shows tonight. Might be 3. We'll see.
Hope you got enough juice in you to get through all of them.
I've got plenty. I've got natural charisma. Natural
Fair
energy
enough.
as well. But to everyone that is watching as well, thank you all for being here. We are 3 minutes 20 in. You do have your night driving music, so seatbelts on, buckle up, and let's get into first gear, gentlemen. And we're gonna start from first gear, and we're gonna proceed across into Manchester, because of course that's always the starting topic point. But we're actually gonna do Manchester in reverse. So we've just left Manchester, and we're driving way up north. False. We're driving in the opposite direction. We're going to London instead. So we're going to do the London journey first, and then we're going to travel back. We're going to discuss perhaps the best football match to date of the Premier League season, which was that 4-4 draw between Chelsea and Manchester City. I think it's only fitting that we start with a bit of entertainment before we get to the typical doom and gloom and Julio try to defend referees. So, first of all, I want to say this. I think we can all agree on what I'm about to say. That was a great game of football. Peter Drury is a good commentator, but he needs to calm it a little bit with the Shakespearean nonsense when it's a teenager saving his club and getting a draw. Do we agree or do we disagree?
I mean, it's good entertainment, but at the end of the day, like, this is pretty much Cole Palmer's first big thing that he's had in his career. Like, what else has he had aside from his Chelsea transfer and that amazing performance against Swindon in the Cup?
The Super Cup. That's it.
Yeah, and that as well. But
yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, fair play for him for getting his first Chelsea goal. Well, I believe is his first Chelsea goal as well with that penalty. But boy, what a game that was! Neck and neck throughout. Defenses, they really weren't on show in this one, and pretty much Pep's what could you describe it as? Three at the back, Doku and Foden filling in as those wing backs. He got absolutely found out.
Mhm.
That's my personal opinion against Pochettino there.
Yeah, that's 4 penalties now from 4 for Cole Palmer at
Exactly.
Chelsea alone.
Very good.
4 goals from the penalty spot. Not bad. I think the one thing that's good for him in the most important circumstance is the fact that he took it. I mean, I was watching that last 10 minutes. I was watching the last 10 minutes specifically with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that we both agreed on is we need to see exactly what he does with this penalty. Because if he was just to not just miss it, but hit it spectacularly wide, then we know where his mentality is at. That he's bought and paid for. If he scores this, how will he react? And we kind of saw that. Because when he scored, before he hesitated, think about this, before before he went for it, he hesitated because he was going to celebrate. He was going to celebrate in front of those fans. So I wonder, and I'm going to pose this question to everybody because I have a particular opinion on it. Do you think it matters if a player celebrates against his former club? Me personally, I don't care. Unless it's like you were at the club for like 10, 15 years, then I have an issue. But if you've only been in the first team for less than a year, despite having a long association to the club, you've only been in the first year for, say, a year or so, then it makes no difference. You should be celebrating. What do you think?
For me, it depends who you are. Like, say for example, let's take an example from this Man City team. So say
it's for example, it's Totti versus Roma.
If it's
Which we've
Totti
never
against
seen
Roma,
anyway.
yeah, for me it'd be straight up, nope, don't celebrate. Made history at the club. That is a nice, simple one. Let's say Gvardiol.
Yes.
If he leaves in January, which somehow, considering the way he's been this season, would be an absolute miracle, ends up at Tottenham, even more mad situation, scores against Chelsea, for me, that's absolutely fine.
Agreed.
And you should be celebrating like you would for any other club. But I think you can't exactly even put a length of time on it either. It's pretty much down to what you did for the club. So if you absolutely love being there, say for example you had to leave on a certain situation, sort of made yourself a legend there, then you should, out of respect, not celebrate.
This is an interesting comment. You're playing for a club. Why should you care about offending your previous employers? Yeah, that's the thing,
a fair point, but I think
it
that
depends on the level.
Yeah, it's in some scenarios. If you have like another one coming through, Phil Foden, with the way he was brought up through the Manchester City academy, if he gets a massive move to Bayern Munich, for example, comes to the Champions League, scores against them within the first 20 minutes, gets them extends their lead 2-0, probably with.
Agree, yeah.
If, say, for example, 5 years down the line, if Thomas Muller's somehow still playing for him in his 40s, then I'd probably say, okay, a bit of respect, considering they built your career up. You've had, look at the amount of trophies he's won with them at that age. Like, they set the building blocks for his career. Out of respect, don't celebrate. If you're celebrating like you won the World Cup, then That's just complete.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, but it's completely disrespectful.
It is.
Especially if you cemented yourself as legend status. Like, you're not exactly going to get that statue built outside the ground if you've like won 3 Champions League somewhere.
Exactly. And I just wanted to ask that because it's just the way that, me personally, if I was Cole Palmer,
Yeah.
I would have celebrated against Man City. I would have. Because considering how old he is, he's dead young. City outright told him, even though you've won trophies with us, there's players already ahead of you. They're like 8, 9 years older. You don't have a chance.
Yeah.
I'd celebrate for saying, well, if that's your attitude towards me, despite being honest, that's your attitude, give me no chance of forcing my way in, then fine. I would have celebrated my ass off in front of them. I would have rubbed right in their faces.
A massive example of another one I saw this weekend is Birmingham Sunderland. Joe Bellingham getting the goal.
What a goal as well.
It was stunning. Sort of a moderate celebration.
He will end up being... You know what's crazy?
Mm.
Even his brother Jude believes that Joel will be better than him. He's already said that Joel is better than him on every level. The only difference is Jude's playing for the best club in football.
Absolutely.
I think that's Andy's 3 years younger, 4 years younger. I think that's massive words to come from Jude. I think that's massive.
And that's just going to show you what's going to happen in the future. I mean, it could be that Joe follows his way into Real Madrid, and I don't know, Sunderland might even retire his shirt.
How crazy
with
would
the
that
way
be?
it's going, but
how
that
crazy
would be mental.
that be? Your midfield at Real Madrid: Federico Valverde, Aurelian Tchouaméni, Eduardo Camavinga, Jude Bellingham, and Joel Bellingham as the backup defensive midfielder that just slots. I'd piss myself. That'd be quality. The 2 Bellinghams in midfield.
Football at that rate.
Oh, it'd be incredible. It'd be incredible. 2 years younger. Cheers, Elsie. I knew he was around about that rough age, but he's fantastic. I love watching Joel Bellingham play. He's really good with the ball at his feet. He's got a good passing range on him. Good work rate for a young lad. Like, he breaks that stupid mold that we've slandered numerous times on this channel about young players who just don't give a shit. They've made money. They think they've made it. He hasn't. He accepts he hasn't made it in football yet. That's the massive key, and it's the same with Jude. Like, even from when we first saw Jude Bellingham step up. Like, I know Harry Kane's the most prolific English player right now in world football, and there's no compromise. But the outstanding English player, the best English player in world football, is Jude Bellingham. And anybody who thinks it isn't is living under a rock.
Yeah.
Or has a crazy agenda against him.
He's our only franchise player. That's the way I see it. He's our first He's in the last 20 or so years.
He's the first franchise player since Beckham.
I was going to say Rooney is close, but Beckham is the only S-tier franchise player, if you like, that England have ever had. No one could match.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Rooney's a franchise player.
He's not quite there, but no one 7-peats FIFA like Rooney did. Of
course, that's the thing. So Rooney isn't a franchise player, but Rooney is he's the one that flips the franchise narrative. He flips it and says, you don't need a franchise, here's your fulcrum. And he was that fulcrum. So he ain't your franchise, but he's your fulcrum. Before Beckham, I would arguably say the franchise before that is probably Paul Gascoigne. It's probably
100%.
is Gascoigne, yeah. And then before that, despite the injuries, Robson. I think those were your Gascoigne of the 90s, Beckham of the early to mid 90s, Beckham late 90s to the early 2000s, 2006 when he officially stopped being a main starter because they went with Bentley, which was still to this day bizarre. Robson from the 80s, John Barnes as well, late 80s as well. I'd say they were the 2 franchise players of all that ilk, really up there. I think you have that Nowadays, Harry Kane is that fulcrum since Rooney retired. Harry Kane is the fulcrum. Jude Bellingham was 100% the franchise player. It could have been Jack. It could have been Jack Grealish. Let's be real. It could have been Jack Grealish because he is good, but he doesn't have what Bellingham possesses.
I'm going to put another thing to the table as well, and it sort of stays on the same topic of it.
Go on.
How about if we skew it? Because in my opinion, while he's not the franchise player for the England national team, around the mid-2010s, I'd probably say that Rooney was the franchise player for the Premier League. He was the face of the Premier League.
I do not disagree, because when you look at who you had around that time as well, the only other player
I would say
maybe,
though, post Ronaldo.
Yes, got to remember that. The only other ones I would have said though is, even though it was two best years maybe for him at Chelsea, but maybe Hazard as well. Because
I'd even throw Drogba in there.
Do you know what I think?
Alexis Sanchez, from Arsenal's perspective, was a franchise player.
I think if you look at the last 20 years, you've got Henry, then Cristiano, then Rooney with a mix of Drogba in there. I think there's been one or two, maybe as a collective.
I think Drogba is your fulcrum. I think Drogba could be a mix of both. I think he's more fulcrum because he really made Chelsea
After Rooney, I'd say probably Hazard, then probably with a mix of Sanchez as well, then probably Salah. The last few years hasn't been as good as, in terms of franchise players, the last few years hasn't.
Human Son?
They don't have the same. They don't have the same kind of vibe around them. And
for me, Son doesn't.
The way Rooney did, the way Ronaldo did, the way they just don't have, the last 5-6 years, they haven't got it the same.
What about Sergio Aguero? I think he's got a strong case or David Silva. I think either of them have got a strong case. For me, it was
Aguero before Salah came along. Because Salah had it for the few years, but I think now it's fully going to be Haaland for the next few.
Yeah, 100%.
But obviously it depends on what comes through then, because you never know. You could have, say, for example, a Man City, or even if the Glazers, a miracle happens and leaves Man United, you guys could sign a franchise player from abroad. You could say
that there's only one franchise. There's only one franchise player I'd take. Jamal Musiala. He is like I say about fulcrums. Like, I think Kimmich is the fulcrum in that team, like that German team, or even Bayern. But Musiala is the franchise. Like, he has got everything you could want in a player. He is a joy to watch. He is a joy. But when you think of like English players as Bellingham, and I think of Germany immediately as Musiala. Like he has it all. Like that you think of. You know what we're going to do actually? You know, before we go back into the Premier League topic, let's do this could we don't know how long this could take, but you know what? Let's do it. Let's do a 1 to 11 of who we think was a franchise player for each position. So I'm going to say immediately, for me, goalkeeper.
Is this since the Premier League's begun?
No, we're just going to do from what we've actually seen in world football. Like, of our entire lifetime. So I'm going to say right now, goalkeepers-wise, there's been so many. The likes of Oliver Kahn. Yeah,
let's get a Word doc. Let's get my beloved Word document open and let's get this done.
So I'll name
we'll
some
get serious when this comes up.
Absolutely. I'll name a few examples of mine. So you get 3 examples each, and we can't repeat. So we're not allowed to repeat each other. So my 3 are Gigi Buffon, Iker Casillas, Manuel Neuer.
For me, it's Neuer.
Is there anybody else you'd consider as a franchise for that goalkeeper position?
Possibly Victor Valdez.
No, I think
he was excellent.
I think there you're stepping into the territory of could be but not quite, because I'd have the same thing with Petr Cech, for example, and Edwin van der Sar and some others. But I think for me, the ultimate one.
I think he was look what he did to that German and Bayern Munich side. He just became everything. Like he epitomizes like that standalone, like like, fuck it, you want to try me, come at me. But I think when you think about goalkeepers, I think Neuer's a perfect example. But it's
The
just
three
hard
names
to
you
not
mentioned were the three names that came to mind.
I think of. Yeah,
They've got to have an
Casillas,
aura
yeah.
and a vibe about them. It's
Yeah,
a franchise player's got to have an aura and a vibe about them. And I know that
and that's
Khan is very commanding, for example.
so.
But he
This is
doesn't
what.
have that.
So this is what Hella wants to ask: is what's a franchise player? Franchise players like that one person that you can bet everything on, that is going to deliver and has that feel. So a perfect example of a franchise player is Zinedine Zidane. That's franchise.
It's a very American way of describing it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
You see it a lot. Like we'd probably say your star players, your veterans, as another example. Mainly star player.
A friend of mine has a word for
superstar.
A friend of mine has a
much.
word for this kind of player. He says that this is a player who's got back juice, and I don't know where he came up with that word from, but it's like you got to have aura, vibe, charisma. Everything about you is like star man almost, like the Beckhams of the world, the Zidanes of the world. You know,
You're
Real
just
Madrid
that
almost.
level.
That's what Real Madrid did with their Galacticos almost.
Mm-hmm.
You're that type of player. The best way to put it, like, in a way, is it's the last 30 seconds of a game in any sport that involves a game, pretty much. So like your American football, basketball, football, rugby, because, well, you've got to include that for some people, I suppose. Like, rugby fans will probably get offended. It's that last 30 seconds of the game. Your whole team is pretty much tried everything, but then that one player you can bet your life on has delivered. So we mentioned Thierry Henry earlier on. There's a video of him, football's greatest teams. I've alluded to football's greatest on this channel before. Well, this entire podcast. There's an episode about football's greatest teams, and it's Arsenal. So obviously it's Arsenal's invincible season, which isn't even better than their 97-98 team. That is heavy typing. Who are you trying to blast? Who are you blasting? Jesus
Sorry, am I not
Christ.
on mute?
That is far too heavy, boy. Anyway, so the football's greatest team one about the Arsenal Invincible. It's they talk about the game where it's Liverpool versus Arsenal, and Thierry Henry hadn't even scored a goal yet or had a shot on target, and it's like, even in the last 5 minutes, nobody does anything. Thierry Henry just give him the ball, he's going to score. Coincidentally, Thierry Henry scored twice. So it's that type of player that you can bet your absolute life on, and you're not going to fail.
I completely agree. So with the keeper position, we're going for Neuer then, I presume.
I think it is, but I would say Buffon. Shit, hold on. I think Neuer's the ultimate franchise when you look at it, but Neuer's not Neuer or Casillas aren't hard to dispute.
Neuer, Casillas, and Buffon, I think.
It's all three either way of the yeah. I would go hands. I'm okay to go with Neuer on that. Like that franchise goalkeeper. So I'm going to give Nathan, you're going to get first crack at the right backs. Julio, you're going to get first crack at left backs. So Nathan, who would you put as a right back?
Right back's a bit of a trickier one. I just want to double check something actually. Very rapid. I've got two.
Who's fine?
Dani Alves.
100%.
Philip Lahm.
Interesting. I like it. Good choices. There's another two, but one of them potentially could be used as a left back that Julio might name if he knows who I'm talking about. The other right back I was going to suggest as well is Cafu. But that's another interesting question. But I do agree on Philip Lahm and Dani Alves. I think especially Dani Alves. I think he is that outstanding figure on the right back spot.
Do you have anyone else to else? No, start again. Do you have anyone else to add, Julio, or are you go for? Because for me, it's Dani Alves. He was very close though.
There was one other name, and I mentioned he could be a left back as well. I was trying to see if Julio would pick up on that. Because I
You
gave
see,
him
you
left
said
backs.
that. I thought Philip Lahm immediately.
It's not Lam I'm thinking of. Played in Serie A.
What, are you talking about Maldini?
No.
Cafu?
No.
Damn it.
When you think of longest serving players, you were half right when you said Maldini. You just got the club wrong.
Zanetti.
There you go. I think
That
Javier
handsome
Zanetti.
bastard hasn't aged in years.
I think Javier Zanetti is a franchise player as well. I think he honestly is.
I think he is to an extent, but I think that he's not
But
flavour of the month enough, if you get what I mean. I think Dani Alves would get it because he's more flavour of the month as opposed to Zanetti. That's not disrespecting Zanetti. I respect him so much as a player, but I just think that
Zanetti has never been a franchise player. Funnily enough, well, no, he's never been a flavour of the month, unless you're Roy Hodgson, who's the manager that signed him.
yeah, exactly. I think if you were to make an 11 and you could only put one player in it, I think Alves goes in ahead of Cafu, Lahm, and Zanetti.
I agree. Shall we bring it on screen? We'll do it on screen, everybody.
Yes, I'm doing it now. Apologies,
Lovely.
I'm just currently building it up. Sorry, guys. For anyone who is watching, I don't know why it's just going really slow. Where's it going?
So for that, so we've got Neuer and Dani Alves. Julio, your left back mentions. Who have you got?
Maldini was one of my choices.
Hella's also mentioned Maldini in the chat. He's the best defender I've ever seen.
Roberto Carlos and Marcelo, I would almost cut from the same cloth in a way.
To a degree, yes.
Ashley Cole was another thought process when I was trying to go outside of Spain and Galacticos, because I think when you think of best left backs in Premier League history, some people would like to try and put Ever in the debate. A lot of people just go Ashley Cole straight off the bat.
I think Ever was really good to watch, but Cole was definitely better than him.
Yeah, Cole. In fact, Ashley Cole is almost a unanimous choice in the sense of he was the face of left backs in the Premier League, if you get what I mean.
I'm going to throw one more out there. Marcelo.
Go on.
Yeah.
And Roberto Carlos.
Yeah. I think I think it's going to be between the two Brazilians and then either one of them or Maldini. But the problem is, a lot of people think of Maldini as a centre half.
For me,
That's because he did play there.
I was going to say really for the.
I know he did, but
I was going to do this. Even though I prefer Maldini as a left back, I also was going to use him as a centre back because there's only one other centre back name, fun enough, I had in mind. But, well, that I think was definitely a franchise from a long era past of ours. Long era past. But left back, I would say, I think Roberto Carlos has the memory of like the beautiful goals he scored.
Yeah.
But the fact is that Marcelo, like Dani Alves, is the most successful left back. He's the most successful player in his position. That is franchise material. I think for that reason alone, it's Marcelo.
I'd agree. I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, I've not watched Roberto Carlos anywhere near as left back anywhere near as much as I have Marcelo, and watching Marcelo was a joy to watch.
I've been blessed to watch both, and whereas I think Roberto Carlos was probably the better of the two, the fact of the matter is, and it's a legit fact, is Marcelo was more successful in him because he delivered more. And it was also because he had better time as well where he was playing. Success definitely benefited Marcelo.
Don't know why Marcelo wouldn't come up.
Hmm.
That is very odd. I know, wait, actually.
Something
See if I can
different
pop
for
his full name
our
in.
viewers. Something different for our viewers. Whilst we're at it, I think we're all unanimously agreeing on Maldini as the left-sided centre-back.
100%, yeah.
Has to
So,
be.
so I had two other names potentially beside that, and the other two I had. Actually, do I have a third one? Yeah, I have three actually. So, one of the names I had obviously was the centre back that retired the year I was born. Obviously, blessed to actually support this team, so he's one of the best centre backs I've had the privilege of watching back. Is Franco Baresi.
Mm-hmm.
The other centre back I've got is Beckenbauer. Obviously, I've named a German Italian, rightfully so, being from having relations of both those nations. So Baresi and Beckenbauer. The last one I have is Sergio Ramos.
Ramos has got to be sort of included. By the way, I'm just
I
putting
think-
Silva in there as a placeholder.
Thiago Silva, yeah. Thiago Silva's another one.
My thought process was people I've watched. So I've gone pretty much 2000 onwards from since I've been born.
That's fair.
Sergio Ramos was my ultimate pick. I have so much respect for Sergio Ramos. I think I just love everything about him. I think if I'm thinking of others, I think Rio Ferdinand was a franchise player to an extent.
I have another one. What about Carlos Puyol?
I was debating Carlos Puyol actually.
Puyol's an
excellent.
interesting one because he is someone with such high pedigree in the game, but I just think that he doesn't have that.
I was
I was
also.
going to say, I don't know what's the word for it, but he doesn't have that like pizzazz almost that other centre halves do. That's not disrespecting him in any way.
But he had something to him. I was thinking as well, Lucio. I thought
Lucio's an underrated shout, actually.
And I also had Ricardo Carvalho. I think he had more of a franchise feel than John Terry from that Chelsea defence.
Yeah.
Chelsea fans might hate that, but that's what I think.
No, I think Terry had the franchise, but he wasn't the better defender. Carvalho was.
100%.
That's the perception there. I disagree because Carvalho is the better defender, but because John Terry, proper Chelsea captain, etc., he had that, that face of Chelsea almost. He was part of that spine for years.
There's also, I'm gonna name three more players, and I'll let you guys decide yourselves who else you think of. Alessandro Nesta, Chiellini,
good shout.
Jaap Stam.
They're all very no nonsense,
but they were franchise and consistent teams as well that mattered.
Yeah,
especially when it mattered. Nesta most of all, I think. I mean, the fact he'd done it with like that Lazio team that was underrated at the end of the century. Then he goes to Milan, then he wins 2 Champions Leagues out of 3 possible finals that he competed in.
That's actually a crazy record.
The guy's a bedlam. Like, the guy's mad. And at one point, he was the most expensive defender in football. Don't forget that. He was a captain, and he was sold for 40 million. Unheard of.
I mean, when you say things like that, you're making me think of like prime Serie A, and you're making me think of names like Thuram, Cannavaro.
Yeah,
100%.
Cannavaro, yeah.
Pretty much any world-class centre-half that was linked with a big money move in the early 2000s from Serie A, they walk into this team in some aspect. I think Sergio Ramos is the ultimate one. but all of these names have a say in it.
I think Fernando Hierro also deserves a mention. Because he was that
Yeah.
last big player before they decided to bin everything that mattered for the Galacticos.
Mm.
And he was, in a way, a Galactico in itself, because he embodied winning at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So who are we going to go? We're going to give it... So I've put a lot of names out there, but I'm going to give it to you guys as final vote. Who would you have? Because Maldini was my first pick anyway, regardless.
I just want to throw Gerard Piqué as a name out there just because of the fact that United sold him for about £3 million, and then within 3 years he was winning leagues and
Everything.
Champions Leagues and banging Shakira. I
I
don't think any
mind
players
Shakira
had
like
that much of an upgrade in their career from fifth choice centre half at United to those heights.
Nah, he went from winning a Champions League to winning a treble and hips don't lie. I mean, the European.
Don't forget, he scored twice in that Champions League campaign.
He did, and he was a rock at the World Cup and a rock at the Euros.
True.
Part of one of the greatest international teams of all time.
Yeah, I think that you've got a massive.
I think Ramos goes in. I think Ramos, in every camp you could mention for a franchise centre-back, I think Ramos is there.
Yeah.
You want a goal-scoring centre-half? He's that. You want someone who's won everything? You've got that. Whether it's part of the great Real Madrid three-peat team, whether it's part of that great Spanish team. I think you want someone who's no-nonsense, he's your guy. You want someone who still has that pizzazz almost on the ball, that aura on the ball, he's your guy. I think he fits into every single category you can think of.
For me, I'm very just going to edge with Julio because I would have said Carlos Puyol. But I'm just going to give it to Ramos for that reason.
I second that as well.
Puyol is a great shout. What he embodied as a player. Not just as a player, but as a man as well. Like on the pitch, you could see like who he was and what he was. Sometimes you don't hear his name enough in these conversations.
Still to this day, madly, he's still my dad's favourite player. As a centre-back. Like centre-back wise, he's still my dad's favourite player. My dad's actual favourite player that I will mention later on. And it will shock you who my dad's favourite player is. Right, so holding midfield.
This is where it gets interesting.
So I think recency bias, you're going to have Kante, Rodri, Kimmich, Busquets from
Casemiro for what he did at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And Casemiro's recency bias from an all-time perspective, Lothar Matthäus, Claude Makelele, Pep Guardiola.
One more, Andrea Pirlo.
Andrea Pirlo. Yeah, Andrea Pirlo.
Oh, God, Pirlo.
That's your dynamic. But I can also name one more that deservedly so should be in this mention. Some great shouts from Hella. She's mentioned Pirlo. Sorry, Iniesta, more of an attacking option. Scholes as well. Modric's a great one. I was going to say Marcel Desailly.
Oh my God, yes.
We are in for the hardest position. I think the striker will be the easiest choice. But actually picking our midfield is going to be very hard. But I think defensive midfield especially will be hard. Is there any other player that you guys would like to mention?
Hella's mentioned possibly Scholes and...
I'll mention Vieira because him and Keane, for example, part of that, faces of the Premier League, that kind of aspect of it. I think
Yaya Toure's
I have another one. Yeah, Toure's a good option. Clarence Seedorf.
Attacking midfield, but yeah.
I want to say we put for me, it would come down to two people, and that would be Makaleli or Pirlo. Makaleli literally has his own role for a reason.
Brian Robson is also another one.
Oh,
Technically,
Robbo could do everything, though. You could put Robbo anywhere in that midfield, and he'll be just as good.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right by Makaleli. But that is hard to admit some of these players. That is genuinely so hard.
Yeah.
Because you've also...
In
you've
my
also
opinion, go on.
You've also got, from that great Juventus team in the 90s, you've also got Didier Deschamps, you've also got Antonio Conte.
True.
Oh my
And you've
God.
also got a very underrated option from Real Madrid, Fernando Redondo.
Mm.
He was a franchise player in that team. Because it went through him, that entire base diamond midfield, it went through Redondo.
I gotta say, I cannot leave Pirlo out. For me, he's my CDM
Yeah. Didi, way back, Brazilian.
option.
Yeah. He was excellent. I think you're right with Pirlo. But do we put Pirlo as a holding midfielder? Yes.
Do you agree, Hugo?
I'm thinking carefully because do you know what I mean? I can't pick between the two because they're two. It's two completely different.
It was his best position, though.
No, that's what I mean. It's two completely different players, but the same position, and both franchise player-esque. I think.
Do we sacrifice one of those box-to-box players for two franchise holding midfielders? That
I'm
means
going to say no. I think
no, we don't. No,
I think it's even more difficult with the attacking, to be honest.
I think if you put what I will say is if
we are screwed for the attack. We are screwed for attacking midfield. Like we're going to argue like fuck over attacking midfield.
I'd only say Makaleli over Pirlo just because I'm thinking of what else is coming in that midfield. And I'm just thinking that you give everyone free roam in that midfield, and Makaleli
Remember, we're not building this team to go and blitz it on Ultimate Team. Like,
no, I know.
This is like
also the
this
other
is
issue.
reputation, franchise player.
Exactly. It's the only thing that I could think of that could separate the two, and it's not. It's nothing to me to separate the two.
So this is pure franchise. I think Lothar Matthäus is a great shout because he was a franchise for that great German team.
100%.
And he was a great franchise player for Bayern as well in the 90s on two separate occasions. I mean, his second run lasted from 91 to 1999, and he was 37 when he retired.
I'd put Makaleli in, but because I'm outvoted by the two of you, we have to put Pirlo in. I think that's fair. I'd put Makaleli in. I think he gets up there because he was such a good player and he has a role literally named after him for a type of midfielder. But I am either or. Do you know what I mean? I'm not fussed about this one. I'm outvoted on this one. Pirlo would be just as good in that midfield.
We'll give you this then. From the remaining 5 positions.
Oh my God.
From the remaining 5 positions, pick one position, pick a player, and that player goes straight in for you. There's no debate.
Oh my God.
And I mean, there is no debate. It's your choice. We will go with it. Pick a position. Left centre mid, right wing, left wing striker. Pick one, pick a player. It's yours, it's in. Lock and loaded.
They're also difficult. You should have done this to me at centre back.
Nope. Nope, because you would have taken Maldini out.
No, I wouldn't actually. I would have had that partnership of Maldini and Ramos.
So I'm giving you one of
the
the remaining 5.
Do we possibly change Dani Alves?
That's something Julio can decide if he wants to.
Change Alves for what? What, we go 3 at the back?
I mean, that gives
Unless
us a chance
we're swapping for Philip Lahm.
If we did go 3 at the back, that also gives us a chance to put Carlos in a midfield role. It also gives a chance to put in players like David Beckham, who is going to be missed out here. If he is potentially missed out here as well. There are other great ones. There's a lot of good players that we're going to miss here, especially players that played up here. There was great franchise players that played up in Scotland as well.
Should we just go into Pep's 3-2-4-1?
If you want.
Well, I say Pep's, it's not actually Pep's, but you know.
It's Xavi's. once people, the amount of times I've told people this is a Xavi system. We played it once, it was perfect, and Pep stole it. So that means you could still technically have, well, technically they play 4 attacking players behind the one striker. There's not even fucking wing backs.
Question is though, do we change it?
Your choice, you either get the formation change, which is locked, or you get one player. Either way, it's you've got casting vote.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult because I'm thinking, who misses out? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's 45 minutes, 34 seconds, so you have 10 seconds.
Oh my god.
5, 4, 3.
I haven't got one. I can't
1.
decide. Let's just move on with the thing. Let's just move on.
How about, fine then, we'll do this then. We'll fill in the 5 remaining positions in a 4-3-3. And if there's one that you think we must change, that's your casting vote. Deal?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so right centre mid. I'm going to say flat out the bat, Zinedine Zidane.
Yeah, it's not even close.
No debate. Hopefully Zidane comes up on.
He will appear. He will. His bald head will appear.
In fact, let's get his closest to bald head. In fact, I need to put him on the other side.
Euro 2000 skinhead Zidane. Well, nearly skinhead, I should say. It's quite offensive they don't have a pure bald image of Zidane, but they've got his perfect 96 to 98 Juventus. It's like, you bastards. Left centre mid, gents. What are we thinking? Because this can go across every league, and we've went for the premier midfielder when you think about it.
But we
Zidane
also
was
added
probably
in
the
number
best
10s to this as well.
Well, Zidane was technically number 10, so yeah, I mean, there's Kaká, Rui
Very
Costa,
true.
Ronaldinho can technically play left wing, so we can omit Ronaldinho from attacking
my
midfield.
God.
What
Rivaldo
about
is-
Iniesta, Xavi,
Cruz,
Steven Gerrard,
Modric.
Frank Lampard? Ridiculous.
Steven
Scholes.
Gerrard was a glorified Roy of the Rovers. Does it get more franchise than that?
Scholes, Keane.
I'm not saying put Steven Gerrard in. I just had to get that point across.
Michael Laudrup.
Oh,
Brian
don't even
Laudrup.
mention his name.
Laudrup.
Don't
I have
even
to
mention that man's name.
I have to, because he was actually a fantastic
He was
player.
actually good.
He was until he
Seedorf.
stepped foot into management and won them lot down the road a major trophy.
He's still done it.
But
Seedorf is
yes, I
also
am still
here.
bitter.
I know. Seedorf is there.
You know what?
Yeah.
Beckham would be so good in midfield in today's game.
He'd be a right wing back as well. In a back three system, he'd be a wing back, and he would still be fucking up players. You know, it's mad as well. This is another one for Yaya Toure. This is another one for him. He was a franchise. Like Edgar
Yaya
Davids.
was a franchise player.
Edgar
Davids
Davids was a
It's
franchise.
another one.
But there is one. Is this somebody I would include?
Hella's got a good one, Luis Figo.
Yes, but I would forcibly debate him as a right winger. Between the names I've got, right wing. He's another one. Figo was amazing.
Ruud Gullit.
Yep. Frank Rijkaard. Great in Milan. Great for.
You know, if you read Twitter, you'd think Pogba would be in this list.
I was actually going to mention Paul Pogba. I'm not going to lie to you. I was
For
going to
me,
mention
he's
Pogba.
nowhere near this list.
No, I think in terms of what he's achieved in
has
his career, but in terms of franchise itself with aura and everything, he has it. I will give him that. He does.
Another two example I was going to include from a German sense. I was going to say Michael Ballack, and I was going to say Bastian Schweinsteiger.
Schweinsteiger, oh my God.
But it's about, is the franchise pick? I would have went, just because he was a franchise from Milan, I would have said Kaká as well. Him or Rui Costa were up there.
I think we.
Kaká's a name that gets forgotten a lot in these kind of conversations.
Never for me.
People
Never.
No, of
He's
course
literally
not.
won the Ballon d'Or.
He's one of the
exactly.
best midfielders. He's one of the best midfielders I've actually seen live in person.
It's
Pure joy to
This is
see
so
him. And
tricky.
I seen him live with Ronaldinho, Beckham, Pirlo, Seedorf, and Zaghi in the same team.
I'm crying. I'm actually crying at how beautiful that is.
I managed by Leonardo, so obviously Maldini had just retired. But it was that team, and I'm like, beautiful to watch. I think you could also make a case, a recency bias. You can make a case for Kevin De Bruyne.
No, I don't think there's any midfielders in recency bias that come close to the franchise. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne is a franchise player, but nowhere near as much as any of the names you've mentioned until now.
For me, if De Bruyne
That's also
wins
fair.
one more Champions League, I think he's straight in contention. I think it's just because he's still playing now. And
that's a fair
to be
conversation.
honest, the treble has really helped that.
Yeah, I agree.
But in fact, I actually think that, I mean, Ramos is still playing pretty much, but
at least none of us
my
are
personal
agreeing.
opinion, no current players get into the rest of this team.
Yeah, at least none of us have agreed. Thankfully, none of us have agreed on Aaron Ramsey.
Franchise player. Franchise player. Nah, to be fair, I'm putting Gareth Bale in at right wing, so
We'll see about that.
we will see about that. Anyway, Reece, who's your pick?
Right wing, I'm stuck between Beckham and Figo. Left centre mid, I'm gonna left centre mid. I'm gonna go with. I'm just edging him ahead of. I already lost Mateus once, but I think I might have to lose him again. I'm going Kaká. I'm going with Kaká as my left centre mid choice.
Julio, who are you going for?
I don't know, because
That's it.
for me it's between Scholes, Iniesta, Xavi, Kaká, and Ronaldinho.
The irony is one of them I've already said can play left wing. I don't think Scholes.
But I'm thinking, who could we put at left wing as well?
I'm going to say this controversial. I don't think Scholes was a franchise player. I think he was fulcrum. I think Ryan Giggs was the franchise.
Giggs and Beckham were the franchise player of the class of '92.
They were.
Yeah, I think
Scholes was the fulcrum of that team.
You know what? I think the aura that Ronaldinho had edges it ahead of Kaká for me. But Kaká's one of my favorite players that I've ever watched.
Kaká is the anti-Brazilian Brazilian.
Yeah.
He played a European style, and it's why he was better in big games and lesser games than Ronaldinho ever was. Ronaldinho was not taken away from him. He was consistently questioned by several managers about his ability in games that didn't matter. But when it was a big game,
but he would always pull up with a moment. Ronaldinho had that moment about him.
Kaká was every single bloody game. It is hard, but it's up to you guys. I've gone straight away for Kaká anyway. I have Ronaldinho funnily enough in this team on potentially on the left. It's between him and, to be honest, my left side is between Kaká and I was going to say Cristiano Ronaldo anyway, because you can't ignore Ronaldo.
To be honest, just finishing off centre mids, I was really thinking about putting Xavi in there.
Yeah.
But I think if Julio agrees, we just have to edge it to Kaká. And for my the only reason I give is what he did at Milan and the fact he did win the Ballon d'Or. And he was the last one before the Ronaldo and Messi generation.
Yeah. It was an Asian team as well that still played good football. But he took up the level.
Yeah, I think we'll put Kaká in there.
Are we going for right wing or left wing first?
I want to go with striker.
I agree.
Because we pick one striker each. And I'm going with the best striker I ever saw. I'm going with Ronaldo Nazario. But there's no
Even
other
though
name.
he was before my time, I sort of have to agree on it. But
Only other I would have said after that maybe is either Henri or Del Piero. Maybe Van Nistelrooy. But
I was going to say Henri. What
Yeah.
about going to put two more in? Zlatan.
Ooh.
not bad.
And I know sort of underrated and not really. Well, he did win a Premier League. I think franchise player for me screams Alan Shearer. And I think he doesn't get in there, but he's one that has to be considered.
I've got
Yeah.
another kind of name like that actually. Cantona,
Yeah.
when he was at United. The one when he was there, when he wasn't playing, they didn't win. They were winning before he went off for a year. They were winning after he, and just Cantona himself, just everything about him. The guy, it was a few years before my time, but Cantona,
His presence.
the way he played to an extent was almost like, imagine everything was black and white, and then he comes around and colors it in. That's an analogy I've heard, but the reason I say it's an analogy I've heard is because someone said it, and I'm like, oh wow, someone finally put it into words, because I just couldn't describe it.
No, I think that's a good choice.
Zlatan, Henri are very good shouts for me.
I think we have to also put, just so it is in the discussion as well, both Rooney, as we mentioned earlier, Rooney and also Drogba.
Yeah. Well, no, I disagree slightly on Drogba, because even though he had that franchise face about him, I think he only hit 20 goals a season twice.
Yeah.
Not that it mattered, because he still scored in every single final he played in.
Well, here's the thing with Drogba. He could score 6 goals in a Premier League season. He could score 6 goals for the entire season. You just know that it was like they were either in a final against Arsenal or against Bolton Wanderers. Those 3 were inevitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The guy used to always score against Arsenal and Bolton.
Hella also did mention Van Basten earlier on.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one to ignore. Miroslav Klose as well.
Klose is a very good one.
Klose is a very underrated mention.
Also, we put in Ronaldo as a left winger as well. Or we put him as a striker.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo for me, I would have, even though he formed into a striker, I'd have to say left wing.
I have to agree.
Best footballer was there. There's 2 other strikers I'm gonna name for the simple fact that they were just elegant, but they were just so good. Actually, no, 3. First one is Shevchenko.
Yeah.
Oh, Shevchenko.
Second one is Raul. Easily Raul. And the third one is David Villa.
I thought you were going to mention Villa. I had a feeling you were going to bring his name into it.
Because I love Villa, yeah.
Villa doesn't get in for me, but he's definitely sort of like, you can add him to the mix of a Rooney, a Shearer, a Drogba.
He had that goal in him.
Yeah.
Spain 2010, Villa got them out of jail on some occasions.
And at the Euros as well, he did the whole same thing.
Oh yeah, of course he did, yeah.
They picked him over Raul. Specifically Raul, they picked him over. They gave him Raul's spot. Not just any spot. Raul's spot. Would you guys consider David Trezeguet?
Mate, wasn't he more of a winger though?
Trezeguet was a striker. No, Trezeguet was a striker. Thierry Henry played as a winger when they played for France together. He played in the wing. Trezeguet and Anelka were up front.
Yeah, good point.
That's a hell of a front 3.
Yeah, it was.
Especially Anelka's heavy. I swear, Anelka's so underrated.
he was an arsehole, but yeah, he was incredibly underrated.
I think that's what it was, his poor attitude and stuff, and also the fact that he played for so many different clubs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he was a good striker. Like, he played off the wing for Chelsea a lot of the time, and he still bagged goals for them.
Yeah, that is a very good point. That is a very good point. Try to think. Luca Toni in the Italian team, and funnily enough, and Francesco Totti are also franchise players. Totti especially is a franchise player. He was a Roman franchise.
I wouldn't put Luca Toni in that category personally. I think a certain version of him could, but I think on the whole, I don't think he, compared to the others, when you look at who else is in that list, I wouldn't put him up there.
Yeah, I think Totti definitely is. He definitely is. Henrik Larsson's another one, funnily enough. I did say I'd mention a few from up here. He's one. Alan McCoist is another. Not that he's going to get in this team anyway, but he is a franchise. Is there any last call names before we pick our undisputed choice?
I think we go for it.
Because I think we're missing one, and we've mentioned trebles, and there's one name we haven't mentioned all night
Eto.
yet. Mm-hmm.
Samuel, guy do 2 trebles in a row. Has anyone ever actually done that?
No. It's the only player in world football to do it.
Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah, the way Jose's formation worked out there as well, he'd either play as a right side striker or just off the right hand side.
Yeah.
So Eto operated the right hand side, whether it be as a striker in a 2 partnership or as a right winger.
Not in that Juventus team. Sorry, that Inter Milan team. In that Milan team, he either played off the left wing, Goran Pandev played on the right, or he played through the middle when Milito wasn't playing.
Yeah.
But he was the left midfielder as a striker, which is impressive.
Mm.
He's never been coached to defend, and he defended like a fullback. Like, it was crazy how well he defended.
The Mourinho
like,
effect. Mourinho and African strikers go hand in hand. Eto literally did everything for Jose when Rafa Benitez came in and asked him to do the same things. Eto
He
literally
said no.
said to him, "You're not him. Don't try and be that guy. You're not that guy."
Exactly. Then 2 months later, he was playing for Anche Ancelaka. Anyway, so I'm saying Ronaldo. Nathan.
For me, it's Omri,
Julio.
but as my close number 2 is Ronaldo. As in the Brazilian Ronaldo.
And hell is spot on. Totti is one of Italy's biggest franchise players. Yes, he is, besides the likes of
100% agree
Roberto.
with that, yeah.
If we were just doing a Serie A version of this,
Totti gets in
Totti was
undisputed.
100%. And in fact, I'd probably say be the captain of that team.
Nah, that'd be Maldini.
Nah, come on. Think of all the other captains you could have in that Serie A all-time team. Come on.
But as the top franchise player, for me, it would go to Totti in that
What's
case, the captain. I'd give it to Maldini.
What's crazy is
if it was actually getting a captain.
There's 2 other potential strikers that comes from Serie A that we haven't actually mentioned. They're also both Italian. Vialli, God rest his soul. Roberto Baggio.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh my god, Baggio. See, some of these names is difficult for me to come up with because I never really watched them growing
That's
up.
the benefit of just being slightly older than you. But benefit of just loving that kind of football.
How can you make that sound like such a one-up on this? Please don't do that.
Because it's honest. Honest, it can be.
I know
brutal,
you're calling it for what it is, but you made that sound like such a one-up.
If this system was a flat 4 midfield with a number 10 behind a striker, I would honestly say Del Piero and Baggio. Like, I would, if this was an Italian team, that's what I would have. From my era, excluding from 97 onwards. So obviously Baresi just makes it, even though he retired the year I was born. And then before that, I'd be like, all right, a lot of players miss out. The likes of Van Basten, Desai had just moved on. George Weah, luckily, was in that era. But like Hullet, Rijkaard, they all miss out from my era because they left a couple of years before. But I can still mention the likes of David, Ferron, Lizarazu, Deschamps, Conte, Edgar Davids, Zidane, like so many, like Toldo, Maldini, Toldo for goal, Maldini for centre half, Nesta, like Thuram, Cafu, like Dida as well, like Inzaghi, like all that round, and I'm like, fuck my era. But even like a psychopath like Christian Vieri or Diego Simeone, like all that was my era. I had all of that. Adriano as well, like voted the worst striker in Serie A for 4 years in a row, but yet he was an absolute menace in goal, front of goal. But hands down, my striker of choice is that man right there.
And in fact, we're going to put the amazing Trim in there as well.
The power cut. So, I've picked striker. So I'm going to give Nathan undisputed right wing choice. Julio.
Yeah, the problem is if I go right wingers, you know exactly who I'm going to pick.
True.
I
Then
don't
I
know if
gave
it'd
you
be the
left.
right choice though.
Then I give you left. Potentially, there's a good few right wing choices.
There is.
So, Julio gets left wing and a replacement of his own choice, because I did say you'd still get that. And Nathan
Thank
gets
you.
right wing. So, Julio, left wing.
Cristiano.
Okay.
Everything he's achieved in the game, everything, his journey in the game, what he was, what he's become. The face of the Premier League at one point, won his first Ballon d'Or at United as a Premier League player, scoring 42 goals in all comps in the season, winning the double. Would have been the treble had it not been for that weird Portsmouth game. I think what I really don't like is when Premier League fans try and usher him out of a Premier League all-time list because they go, "Oh, he won Champions Leagues and Ballon d'Ors at Real Madrid," but he won his first at United for both.
And he also
People
won a
seem to
Champions
forget
League and a
that
Ballon
season.
d'Or at Man United. And look at all the league titles as well.
Yeah, the guy was part of that three-peat team. The guy could have bought, if it wasn't for that Barcelona team, yeah, and that awful like refereeing game with Chelsea and all that, he might have had 2 doubles in a row, kind of trebles if you want to count the League Cup as well. And then, but
would have been.
he won.
That's what Liverpool did. That's what Liverpool did in '84. Liverpool's treble was a League Cup, European Cup in the first division. But here's another thing as well. Bar the Europa League and the UEFA Super Cup, Ronaldo won everything there is to win when he played in the Premier League. He won everything.
Absolutely
the Premier League,
right.
bar the Europa League or the UEFA Cup as it was, and he only appeared in one Super Cup final and he lost it to Zenit St. Petersburg.
Did he even appear that game?
Yes. And we still lost. That was a very good Zenit side. That was a
very good Zenit side, yeah.
I watched that final live. Like, I was in that final, and it was horrifying. I'm sure Ronaldo played in the Super Cup.
No, he didn't.
No wonder we lost then.
He was at the Euros, I think. I think he came back late. He had a tendency. I remember that season. I don't think he came back in
Yes, he
until
was.
September.
That's right. Yeah. And we
See, I
started
thought
badly.
it sounded weird that we played a midfield 4 of Nani, Anderson, Scholes, and Fletcher, Rooney, and Tevez up front. We still had a strong team.
Yeah. Still should have, even for himself, he should have been there. I forgot he didn't play. I thought he played.
To be fair, the first few games of that season, we were already playing catch up in the title race.
Aye, but Liverpool, so it was easy.
Yeah.
Because they lost after that eventually. They gave up. Well, they
Yeah,
didn't
I
really,
think
but they
other
failed.
names apart, and then Ronaldo went on to Real Madrid. We know what he did at Real Madrid. That was impeccable. What he achieved there, record goal scorer, personal accolades, team accolades, the team he was a part of. That Jose team should have won a Champions League. Didn't, sadly. Then he went to Juventus, averaged a goal every game. Came to United. Obviously, the last couple of years haven't been so great for him, but I think in an all-time list, he has to go in. Other names I would have put on there, I would have considered Henry, just
Yep.
because he's not a
Henry
striker.
just on left, yeah.
Ronaldinho.
I think
Rivaldo.
Giggs has got to go in as well.
Yeah, I mean, just those two were my first, just two names that popped into my head for all time. I think then we're starting to get in territory of who else we could put in there. I mean, I agree
Perez,
with
I know
Ronaldo and Giggs.
Perez, yeah. Franck Ribéry.
Ribery, yeah.
There is another name. It is quite recent, to a degree, but when you look at Brazil, in a sense, he was the main man for everything. They just didn't get the trophy they really deserved. Neymar is also a franchise player. Whether
But
we
I
want to
don't
admit
think
it or not.
I've
has-
got a very bold opinion about Neymar.
I agree with
We
you
know.
to an extent, Reece, but I don't think he has the career to back it up like the other players in this list. Because I think with
He
franchise
is-
player, you look at what they're like on the commercial side of it and the footballing side. It was the same problem we had with Pogba. Commercially, both of those big names, my God, they're in this team already. But in terms of footballing career, for both of them, you'd look at Pogba and Neymar and go, we expected more from you.
But when you look at Neymar, he is Brazil's record goal scorer.
Yes, true.
Won a Copa America with them.
Yep.
Lost a Copa America final on home turf as well. Carried Brazil to a World Cup, nearly a World Cup final, but he got injured in he got horrifically injured in that quarterfinal by Zuniga. Won the Champions League and a treble with Barcelona, with arguably the best front three football has ever seen, and he was amazing for that. Carried Brazil to the World Cup in 2018 when they weren't particularly great. Carried PSG to trophies, although that's not exactly difficult. But notice how every time PSG struggled, it was when he was not available, whether it be
Call me
controversial or not.
Very controversial opinion, and I know everyone's going to call me a psycho for this, but
By all
okay,
means.
they're two completely different players on another level. But in my opinion, if you put someone like Jared Bowen or someone that caliber, upper Premier League winner, you stick them at PSG, they do exactly the same as what Neymar did.
If not more.
If
You
not
put Prime
more.
Hazard in that team,
Yeah.
you get more.
Potentially. Yeah.
Prime Mahrez is another option.
I see that argument, Nathan. I see it.
That is a fair mention. Like I said, I'm not going to dispute it. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to at least make.
But my personal opinion with Neymar, and it's very controversial, he's very similar. Well, even though you can't exactly tie Bale into it, but
Too busy banging his sister than winning World Cups.
Allegedly.
pretty much. But
No, it's definitely not.
Neymar
Forget
will be
alleged.
remembered more.
I'm just trying to
for his
maintain the
international
dignity.
career. And in
He has
my
no
opinion, he has basically no, in what I put in quotation marks, no club history or no club achievements of significant note after 2016.
That's fair.
Say that again. Say that point again, sorry.
Neymar has no significant club honours or club achievements of note, and I'll very loosely say of note, post 2016.
Facts. I actually agree with that. World record transfer, albeit a release clause, I think it was.
It was, yeah, they
But-
matched the buyout fee, didn't they?
Yeah, but nothing else. He's playing. We're forgetting he's now in Saudi Arabia.
Is the only recent mention we can have Mbappe?
Yes,
Be honest.
For me, it's too early to call.
He's
in
already
terms
he's
of recent,
already
I think he's
already
proven
close.
to an extent that
He
he
has
should
won the
be.
World Cup.
He's already 2 goals away, I think, from being the record goal scorer at the World Cup.
From 2 World Cup tournaments.
Yes.
I think people would. Mbappe's a weird one because, in fact, he is
Also,
an ultimate. He's an ultimate
big-
franchise player to an extent because what he did in that World Cup final alone.
Has never been done before.
No, but then whenever things go south, people look at him. The same way, whenever a team is going down, they look at the main man. And now granted, he may be a little bit spoiled, but at his age, to have that, I think if he wants to cement his legacy, he needs to stop like sticking with PSG from their ridiculous like demands, because you can still be the poster boy for France at Real Madrid. You could still be the poster boy for France at Manchester United. I'm not saying he's going to come to United, but what I'm saying is going to a club of that scale, he will still be the poster boy of France.
Mm-hmm.
For me, he's hit the ceiling at PSG.
Yes.
Come on, Hella. How can you?
No matter what way you
Hella
look at
saying
it.
ooh. Hella, what are you saying ooh for? You saying ooh to Neymar or ooh to Mbappe? I mean, I think my
I
little
have a
brother's
feeling it's Mbappe, but
my little brother's a PSG fan. He actually wants Mbappe to get sold. He doesn't like Mbappe, by the way. My brother's a PSG fan.
the thing is with what PSG now have, and I think they need to.
They have no identity for starters.
They have no identity, and if they want to be that global powerhouse where they do win Champions Leagues and get it over the line, they have to move to a model very similar to what you can say a non-top 4 country and the way that they've won the Champions League. And the one that I think of, obviously not now because they're a complete capitulation, but Ajax. That is the model that PSG from the 90s, 2000s, that's the model that PSG need to adopt.
But that's
Bringing
technically
in the
what they were.
youngsters and getting superstars straight out of them and converting them on a conveyor belt.
But that's technically what they were doing, though, because they went and signed a lot of younger players, but they went and signed a lot of French players.
Very true.
Like they went and signed a lot of top French players, including the likes of Kolo Muani. But
I
then they
said
brought
in the
in
summer
Gonzalo
that
Ramos
transfer
on
would
loan.
happen.
You did?
You did.
It
I
hasn't
said
worked for him yet, but
I
it's a
thought
shot.
Marcus Thuram or Diaby would go as well, but they went to Inter and Aston Villa respectively.
That would have been a scary team for them, and I think they were banking on it. Like, especially even if Enrique was going to be their manager or not, I think they were banking on Diaby and Thuram anyway, because there's a right winger, a left winger, and you've got a striker in Kolo Muani, plus Gonzalo Ramos as a backup on loan, which makes no sense why they signed him on loan. Neymar, yeah.
For me, Gonzalo Ramos, completely wrong move going to PSG.
He should have stayed at
But
Benfica for
yeah,
another
he should
year.
have. For me, that's another debate further down the line. But
yeah,
Just for
Cristiano Ronaldo goes
for
in
me,
at left wing.
yeah, he goes in.
Yeah, just for our viewers on Spotify, obviously we've been doing we have been doing this create a team of ilk for franchise players so far. We are 1 hour 18 minutes into the podcast. We'll be returning to normal service very shortly. We're on the last player now, and at the very end, after I've revealed the right winger, I will reveal 1 to 11, and then we'll dive straight back in, and we're going to slander VAR after we discuss about the Premier League, obviously, because we still need to finish discussing the Premier League, which is obviously embarrassing anyway. But especially Jamie Carragher claiming it's the best league in world football when it's got the worst officiating. But Nathan, I did grant you the right wing position.
You have, I think. Let's chuck a couple out of there. So David Beckham straight away has to be in contention.
Mm-hmm.
I know he
Easy.
was more further back, but as a right winger, he's obviously what he's done. He has to be considered, and there's no denying
Absolutely.
that. I'll get on to obviously my pick, even though in my opinion he doesn't win, and there is only one winner for the right winger. I don't know why that sounds so weird, but
It's a mouthful.
it is. Another one that defines franchise player is Iron Robben.
Mm-hmm.
Signature
Pedigree
cut in.
The signature cut in, the pedigree that he did for the Dutch national team, obviously the team who should have won the 2010 World Cup, their performance in the 2014 World Cup, what he did for Bayern Munich as well in that ridiculous stretch in the Bundesliga. He has to be on there. For me, another one, and in my opinion, probably the most underrated Galactico and one of the best Galacticos of all time, Gareth Bale.
Well, you would say that, wouldn't you?
Okay, there is a lot of bias because
I agree, though. I agree.
He has to be on there.
Well, to be fair, in the second stint, the Galacticos didn't win a Champions League until Gareth Bale got signed.
He was almost that
Exactly.
missing piece, wasn't he? Even though they had so many star players for the left wing and right wing spots, he came in and suddenly there was this formulated front three with Di Maria as a 10 behind them.
He's another franchise player, funnily enough, even though he's a snake.
And thinking about that Real Madrid team as well, another consideration that we didn't put in at striker was Karim Benzema.
Mm-hmm. But we also forgot Mesut Ozil as well, so we can't say much.
Another option in midfield, very
Ozil.
true.
Ozil at Real Madrid, my God.
But I pretty much
Xabi Alonso
straight
as
to
well,
put it in
DM.
with Bale. 5 Champions Leagues. Literally dragging a country who hasn't been at a major tournament in over 50 years, kicking and screaming into a semi-final. That's obscene. Like, pretty much revolutionising the country. Doing it every season at Real Madrid. Going back to Spurs. Doing decent as well.
They should have kept him, although I still
should've.
I still say during that period the Man United should have, even though he was 30 odd years old, Man United should have tried, even though he was losing pace. He still would have been our best player.
In my opinion as well, Gareth Bale did just as much at Real Madrid as Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh,
And
that's
there's
a bold
another
statement.
question that I will.
It's just
Another
a
statement I
goal
will make.
difference. It's just
It
a
is.
goal difference, yeah. But when you
And-
look at it, his injuries were bad. But coincidentally enough, when he turned up immediately, he put Real Madrid in a position that we're going to go and win the Champions League,
Absolutely.
whether it be starting or off the bench. Because not mentioned as well, the season that City nearly made the final under Pellegrini, it was 0-0 in both legs until Bale scored the only goal of the game as well. No one was scoring against City. They were struggling until Gareth Bale scored. It's another fact.
Bale came close though. When I said Bale came close, I mean it almost went wrong in 2014. Bale had 2 or 3 brilliant chances in that final in the 90 minutes, missed them. And, you know, obviously Ramos pops up with that goal and then Bale gets his goal. But
Spot on.
I think that I agree to an extent actually that from the credentials you've listed there,
There's still
Bale has every right to be in this list.
there's
For
still
me,
one more name. There
is one more name. And in
And
my
it is
opinion, he
it's
has
the
won everything.
franchise.
This is
It's the franchise player. Franchise players is Lionel Messi.
exactly. And I also think with Messi as well, when his career has finished, I
There's
think
no-
he is in the debate against Pele for the greatest player of all time. He has won everything that he could possibly win.
The only thing that stops him, theoretically, obviously he has something that Pele never won because it never changed until 1995-96, was the Ballon d'Or. It was European players in Europe only could win it up to that point, which is a shame. But Pele also won 3 World Cups, including he defended a World Cup. Funnily enough, so did Garrincha.
Did.
But when you look at
club pedigree, Messi really does top it. But
and we can't be hypocrites by including Ronaldo and technically still including Ramos and Neuer. We cannot be hypocrites and say we deny Messi even a conversation. Even that, because he is still levels above everyone.
I think so.
Even though they're both playing in leagues that generally aren't good enough anyway. I think Saudi does pip MLS anyway.
Another thing I will say though
I
is
won't watch it.
Messi's PSG transfer does not affect anything we've just said either. That was a
'Cause he's-
forced upon move, and he got out when he could.
And he still delivered.
He still
The
did.
irony is he still delivered.
He had to deliver in a situation that was out of his control.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, while in hindsight, the PSG move was a disaster for Messi,
Mm-hmm.
I seriously think that he did what he could there. And looking back, I think that Man City would have won an additional treble if Messi would have gone there.
100%, because they were playing with a false 9 at the time, really.
They were.
Mm-hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, my opinion of Messi with his Ballon d'Ors, for example, is a little bit like, I think
Questionable.
is questionable. Yeah, I think Ronaldo deserved one extra Ballon d'Or, and I think Messi didn't deserve. I think he deserved 6 out of the 8 that he got. So in my head, they should be level, but they're
He
not.
does. For me, Ronaldo doesn't deserve 2030. Ronaldo doesn't deserve 2013 or whoever won in 2013. No, Messi doesn't deserve 2013. Messi doesn't deserve 2010. 2013 should have went to Robin or Ribéry.
And 2010 should have gone to
Diego Milito.
Milito. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a friend who shares the same opinion.
I would never have given it to Schneider. I don't care about like Schneider may have been that good in that team, but Milito done. He scored in the 3 big games to won it. He scored in the final league game against Siena. He scored in the cup final, and he scored
Twice in the
Champions
Champions
League.
League final.
Exactly, and he was.
Another thing
there.
I will say as well is I also think that, and I know it's controversial and I can see why they've done it, but based on achievements in the calendar year, Messi doesn't win the 2023 Ballon d'Or either.
Absolutely.
For me,
Julian
100% Haaland.
It's Alvarez or Haaland. Another thing I want to say as well, this is this is just something I find really spiteful. Have you guys seen what Inter Miami have done for Adidas for Messi's shirt?
With the
Not gonna lie,
central logo.
I find it extremely spiteful that that he is getting that personalized signature on his shirt compared to the rest of his teammates. Not
I mean,
gonna
we've
lie,
said it. We've
even
said
though
it
it's
a
him.
million times on the channel before. There is no player bigger than a football club.
Yeah,
And Inter Miami are feeding into that ego. Now, Messi is probably the one,
exception.
the biggest superstar out of pretty much the majority of some of the greatest players in history that will keep a lid on it. But for me, there's no
even
exceptions on
Messi
that.
has an ego.
Yeah,
Even Messi
everyone
will
does.
down
Everyone
tools if
has
it
to.
gets bad.
I mean, the guy literally refused to do anything else for Barca after they sacked Valverde, which says a lot. But
True.
the fact that they've gave him that personalized logo on his shirt, when he's still playing with the likes of Busquets, Alba, and all that, and players around him like Martinez, some top players in that league, even though it's not a great league, it's still a top side.
Yeah.
I find that I know there's potentially Luis Suarez coming over as well for that team.
It's a little insulting to those players because Inter Miami have good players, and with Martino at the helm, I think they will win the lot next year.
Oh yeah,
I
they will.
think
Full season behind them. They'll win everything.
But it's a little insulting to the rest of the team
Here
because
you go,
they've all
guys.
got good players.
Yeah, here you go, guys. We've got a new shirt, but Messi, we've got a special one for you with an M with 8 around it for the Ballon d'Or. I'm like, nah, give me a break.
Adidas have just given him like 8 rings to signify each Ballon d'Or win.
It's disgusting. Like that is wrong. Like that is completely wrong. But for everyone that's watching, your goalkeeper is Manuel Neuer. Your back four is Alves, Ramos, Maldini, Carlos. Your midfield is Pirlo, Zidane, Kaká, and your front three is Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. Unless Julio makes his decision to veto and override one decision, but that is your lineup.
I'll make a suggestion because I would make a case to swap Ronaldo Nazario with Henry.
And we're moving on with the show. Thanks, everybody. Let's carry on.
Wow.
First of all,
even
for
gonna
me,
let me
he's
cook
number
with
2.
that.
Yeah.
I said I'd make a case. I didn't.
Yeah.
I said I'd make a suggestion. I said I wouldn't, because to be honest, you could put either or. I just think, I don't know what it is about Ronaldo that would make me hinder his chances. I don't know if it's the injuries. I don't know if it's the fact that he played for so many different clubs. But, you know, Henry was the face of the Premier League. But I just think that
He won
say
He won 3 Ballon d'Ors and he scored 9 goals at a World Cup. When everyone
Yeah.
wrote him off.
That's why I said suggestion. It wasn't.
That's why
I say I'd
said
make a
moving
case
on.
for it, but
And that's why I said moving on. But it's a good suggestion. Anyway, we're going to go back to the Premier League briefly. Because obviously we were discussing that Chelsea-Man City game, which was absolutely fantastic. Just going to get a brief summary on that game from your point of view, lads. But also, Peter Drury's commentary was a little bit over the top with Cole Palmer scoring an equaliser. But just in general, what did you think about that game? Because last week we did sort of say that Chelsea might have a bit of confidence, but we would still think maybe they would lose. But confidence coming at the game is definitely on their side. It was a very good performance, and Pochettino again got it right against Pep Guardiola.
He absolutely did, and I think that with the way that it ended out, this result will be much better for Chelsea than it will Man City, because Man City, with that weird formation that, well, it's not exactly weird, it's Pep's philosophy that he has obviously brought in with his side, the 3-2-4-1. I think it's been worked out. And I don't know whether it's a Pochettino thing or if Chelsea just got the confidence to overload that defense. It's hard to say, but
I'm just saying Solskjaer runs this team ragged.
like
The Chelsea team or the Man City team? Because I don't think he does well at this Chelsea team.
No, Solskjaer runs that City team ragged. Pep went into games and couldn't give any game film for his players.
Yeah,
because he was like, I don't know what they're going to do with us.
It's because it's the same effective style. I will say this though, because like Pochettino's got a habit of actually out coaching Pep in a different way.
Yeah,
he actually out coaches him playing very good football. But the one thing that really surprised me about this game is the fact that when he has beaten Pep before or out coached against his sides, specifically he played a back three. He actually went for a back four against City this time. I was very surprised by that. Julio, what about you?
I was as well, especially since that we've seen. Bless you. We've seen when Pochettino's donned this back four this season, we've seen him operate with 3 centre backs as well. For example, Colwill at left back. And we didn't get that. We had Cucurella and Reece James on the flanks.
Yes, we did.
So I found that quite interesting. You know, I know you've got the legs of Gallagher in midfield with Caicedo, but I just
still a questionable decision.
I was worried for Chelsea seeing that lineup with the left back and the midfield, and with the striker situation as well. But we're always going to feel like that. Listen, like Spurs gave Chelsea the win last week. Let's have it right. You know, no way Nicholas Jackson scores a hat-trick without all that time and without all that like space and high line and stuff. For the neutral, it was a very good game of football to watch. It's funny because for the last week, I've been seeing so many people talk about how Pep's come in with this philosophy and ruined football because it doesn't look as fun anymore. We don't have this like maverick style of play where like people will go at teams, or it's a lot of passing and tippy tappy and whatnot. And then we see this game of football. I think Chelsea did very well to be in the game when they were and to take their chances, because if there's one thing you say about Chelsea this season is they haven't been doing that. It wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea don't score for the next 3 games now because they've used all their luck on this one game. I think that, to be honest, I just have no words for the game. It's just a really entertaining game of football. Cole Palmer taking that penalty and celebrating the way he didn't surprise me. When he made the transfer, there was talk about his attitude as a player, as a person almost in that dressing room, that he's not as maybe quiet and schoolboy, if you like, to what Pep wants with his players. He's got that bit of arrogance about him, etc. You know, I think arrogance maybe is pushing it a little bit. I know, Reece, you were discussing it at the weekend on the Devil's Advocate podcast, which was actually a really good conversation to listen to. But I think that
I don't think the possesses that level of arrogance. I don't think
not that
does.
level, but to an extent. He's got
I
that
don't
bit
see
about
it.
him.
Yeah, he does, but I don't see it about him.
No,
Like,
we don't see it because he's gone into Chelsea and he's pulling his weight and he's doing what needs to be done. I'm just saying there was talk about it during the summer, about him. Like people from City were saying this is kind of what he's like. I think because in the summer, obviously, like Mahrez has gone and pre-season he was being fed into the City side. He was little bit by bit the last couple of years, but over the summer and then the Community Shield and Super Cup games early on, he was being fed into the team. So I thought that we'd see him regularly for City this year. We don't, because obviously he's gone to Chelsea and Chelsea have signed Jeremy Doku. But I just think all in all for that game, it was a really entertaining game. I think any scoreline with 4-4 with big teams is always a good watch, whether it was the Chelsea-Liverpool Champions League game in 2009. That is a classic, in my opinion, where everyone just went free for all. Let's just score goals. So it was a really good game of football to watch, and I think both sides will be annoyed that they didn't win, but it's one of those games where it could have honestly gone either way.
yeah, I agree. Nathan, yourself, briefly on the game?
Yeah, I completely agree. As I said earlier on, I know we want to move on. This result really benefits Chelsea.
It does.
We'll push on their confidence from last week as well. But, I mean, so many red flags from Man City, and ultimately Chelsea need to play like they did against Tottenham, really make sure that they are tight at the back. Because, to be honest, the 4 goals they conceded, and in the manner that they conceded as well,
Sloppy
they're going to
as fuck.
struggle at times, really sloppy. And if they get that right, then they'll be fine to get in the Champions League this season.
There is one other thing, though, funnily enough, about City's next 3 games. Spurs and Liverpool in that run.
In my opinion, if they don't get 6 points against either side, their title is gone.
You think it'll go Arsenal?
I disagree slightly.
I think Arsenal and Liverpool. In fact,
Okay.
Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham each get a shout, because we just know from if they don't get all 6, that there is vulnerability there. And I think that Man City have dropped too many points this season to push on for a title fight. Unless they go on a miraculous run next year where they just win everything.
Which they're capable of.
I think for now, from what we've seen of them this season, and if Pep persists with it, the formation just sickens me.
Yeah.
Then I really think I think they're out of it.
Julio, you want to reply to that?
I disagree, because I said before on this podcast that City don't start the season as quickly as they used to. For example, in January last season, they were like 5, 6, 7 points behind Arsenal, and they'd lost, even though Arsenal dropped points, they'd lost to a subpar Spurs team. In City did. They lost to that subpar Spurs team under Conte, and I don't think he was even there for that game.
Yep.
And people were saying at the time, is Haaland the problem, etc., etc., etc. Suddenly they're treble winners at the end of the season. Everyone's acting like, was there any doubt? So I think that whilst we can say that the top 4 spaces maybe are looking like they're going to close and clubs need to get on a run, I don't think it's the same for the title. I think you never count City out unless you're in April and they're like 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 points behind.
Absolutely.
Because Christmas onwards, City always go on a run. This time, 3 years ago, City were in about 9th, 10th. You know, that COVID season where, you know, Arsenal were top after game 1, then Chelsea were top for a little bit. Then Christmas time, United were in the top 4 after a bad start to the season. City were mid-table, and Spurs went to Anfield in what looked like an early season title clash because they were the 2 on top. Suddenly United were top and City were coming, and everyone could see they were coming. And then City went on and won the league by about 10, 15 points. So now is not the time to worry about City's chances in the league. They will pick up. if they lose both games, yes, you can question it maybe. I don't think they will. I think that there is something in both games that City can capitalise on. Liverpool are still not convincing me with that midfield. They don't have that solid structure they had when Fabinho was in it.
Yeah.
Spurs are, Spurs have their first 11 at the moment, but when one or two players in that 11 aren't available for whatever reason, whether it's at the back or up front, it can cause issues. So it's not a worry, and I just think it'll be a while before we should start hitting the panic button and start saying, Pep's a fraud, he should go, where's this, he's under pressure, sack the manager pressure,
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. We're not going to discuss every team tonight, but there's quite an interesting media narrative. We always know this about one particular club. That's our club, Man United. There's always a media narrative. But that's another 2 players injured in Eriksen and Højlund and a very poor performance. Yet, currently as it stands, Man United are the informed team in terms of results in the Premier League. 4 wins and a draw from the last 5 games. But the media narrative surrounding injuries in particular is becoming a problem, because the difference being it's just Man United, Man United injuries-wise, squad isn't good enough. But with Newcastle losing 2-0 to Bournemouth, it's this Newcastle team needs a rest, which I find it just sums up the media in itself with their narrative. But that wasn't just a 2-0 defeat to Bournemouth. That is a clear indication of what this team is capable of if they shut off, and they shut off big time. Nathan, your thoughts on Newcastle versus Bournemouth?
First of all, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we were saying it at the start of the season. Iraola got everything absolutely spot on in this game. We all knew it was going to take time, or some of us didn't. Some of us thought we'd do it straight away, but
we all stood by
good
them.
grief, did they absolutely decimate Newcastle. Team lineup, Iraola's kept it consistent. It's finally clicked. It's working in the system well. Overloaded Newcastle, who, in my opinion, with some of the injuries that they have been persisting with, like the bench, it was just looking grim.
Oh,
In my
absolutely.
personal opinion, absolutely horrifying. It reminds me of a Mike Ashley bench, if I'm honest. And the fact that Newcastle have peaked so early and Eddie Howe has very rapidly got them up the league, the cracks are starting to show that this squad, in depth-wise, is not ready to be competing in Europe and the Premier League at the same time.
And it
also
says a
trying to
reflection
fight to get silverware in the cups as well.
Yep. And it says a reflection as well that they went from, well, obviously I wrote them off in the group of death anyway.
Yeah.
But they are now bottom of that group. They are now where I said they would be, funnily enough. But the irony of their big fans on Twitter, their big fans in particular saying that Kyle Walker, for example, is finished, but Kieran Trippier was fucking pish against Bournemouth, is absolutely funny. You know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
That's because you're always in the fucking comments, mate, on the tweets. We know. It's all right.
I have an opinion on everything. You know this.
Yeah, that's what it is. We know the real score, buddy. We know the real score.
Under me now. It's unprofessional.
It's okay. You're a young man, of sorts.
With better taste.
Yeah. That is your taste. We know.
That is not my taste.
It is. We know it's your taste. It's okay. You're an honest man. You're an honest man. You're a common man.
God.
It's okay. Like, it's cool. Like, you can go full Dusty Rhodes on her, give her a bionic elbow. It's okay. But in retrospect, if you're going to tweet Kyle Walker is finished, can you at least do it in a game where Kyle Walker actually loses? Not when your star right back is losing to Bournemouth. It's not just a bit of advice or anything like that. That's just a fact of life. But there you go. But when you look at depth in that squad, fundamentally agree they are not fit for challenging for Europe constantly or challenging for a title. But the way they play football, to a degree, is catching up to some of those players. It is catching up to them because they are not rotated. They aren't. They've been found out by having to play in 4 competitions when other clubs are so used to it. The likes of City, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea to a degree are used to it.
I think the reason for that as well is, and I know that everyone knows that the richest club in the world, etc., they have the money to spend, but I do think since they have taken over, they haven't shifted the deadwood as quickly as they should have, which has caused this.
Yes.
Because they
It's
could
a numbers
very
issue.
well, it is a numbers issue. They could have very well used the free agency market, not really the loans market, but even spending cheap amounts of money on quality and better than what they already have. And this is what has happened by they've been too narrow-minded with it for me.
And furthermore, reports about Eddie Howe have been seen apparently.
What kind of reports?
That he might not last in his job.
I think that's lunacy.
Now, funny enough,
I don't think it's real.
Now, funnily enough, if you can recall, I did say at the start of the season, one name I think that does get the sack, that might, I didn't say he will, but I said he might. The first name I said in this podcast was Eddie Howe. He was the first name I mentioned could get the sack this year. And
You did
apparently
say that,
these
and
reports are coming. But the
I thought
irony
you were
is,
insane.
oh yeah, to be fair, I normally am. But what cements that though is they will still look for a big name if they want to. And another former Premier League manager has recently apparently just been sacked from his club in Saudi Arabia. And knowing them, they are nuts enough they would still bring him in. Nuno Espirito Santo is a free agent.
I don't think he's the right fit for Newcastle.
Absolutely not.
Nobody's a right fit for Newcastle except Jose Mourinho.
No, I was going to say Jose.
No, Nuno Espirito Santo, I think he was
I'm not
gifted the
suggesting
goal at
Santo
Wolves. And I think that the setup with obviously the super agent
stay the same.
Someone remind me of his name. Completely gone up my
George
head.
Mendes.
George Mendes, thank you.
It stayed the same.
The setup that they had there and the director of football, he came in at the right time. It clicks well. When he goes in at Spurs, he was given all the tools and completely bottled it.
Yes.
And towards the end of that Wolves tenure as well, there were just too many red flags singing. And just for me, I think if he gets the keys given to Newcastle, he is not lasting longer than 6 months.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's got to be a certain setup. It has to be a certain kind of setup, not just with upstairs, but also with the players he's got. Because he played that 3-4-3/3-5-2. When he went into Spurs, he didn't do that.
And in addition to that as well, he didn't have that player like Ruben Neves to build it around. And
But he will if the whole Saudi loan deal goes ahead.
But I think he plays too much underdog football into what Newcastle might want. I'm not saying Newcastle don't do that, but I just think that there's a difference between, for example, what Eddie Howe's doing and maybe what Simeone does. I'm not saying Nuno is Simeone.
Of course not.
But
I think it's another mentality issue in the way that Nuno put his perspective on it, because blitz the championship. There's no doubt about that with the squad he had. That team
with a shoestring budget, I will admit, a shoestring budget.
Yeah, of only about 20-30 million, which was just ridiculous at the time. But coming up to the Premier League, he didn't play like a promoted club. He got that mentality for these Wolves players to think, right, you're a top 6 club.
And he was right.
Playing with that mentality, he was right, bang, straight into Europe.
With an effective system.
Yeah.
And then they just went against it. Just like some managers have said before. Like, they force the league to adapt to you. Don't you adapt
but
to
I think it comes from I think the pragmatism came down to a similar issue to actually what Newcastle have, which was Wolves were spending big on players, but there wasn't enough investment where it was necessary. they spent 30 odd million on Fabio Silva and 5 million on Brazilian defender Marchal, I think you pronounce his name, I don't know, from Leon.
Marchal, yeah.
But
Yeah.
they needed more reinforcements in and around the back five.
I also think
personally,
that
I would have
another
spent
reason. Go on.
I was gonna say, me personally, I would have spent 80 to 100 million combined on that defense. I know it sounds bizarre because that's Man City level, or Man City territory to a degree. I would have spent big on that whole back five and just reinforced it massively.
I think another thing with the Fabio Silva deal as well was that Nuno was building for the future. There was so much hype around him, especially coming from Benfica as well.
Portal.
They made the thing is they made the same mistake the year before.
I don't know why.
They made the same mistake the year before with Patrick Cutrone.
That was a mistake as well in itself because Patrick Cutrone had just had a good year at Milan, in a slightly defensive system, but it was a Gattuso based system where they were still fed the ball to him. In that Wolves team, the ball was never fed to him once.
But he was hardly in the team anyway.
Yeah, he was never given a chance.
Because I think when they came up, obviously they signed the Dendonkas of the world. They had the Adamas, but then they also had. I know there were some games they were playing Adama as a wing back almost.
And that should have how he stayed. And he should have stayed.
They didn't have the adequate cover.
He was excellent as a winger, but I actually think Santos should have kept him as in that wing back role in a 3-4-3. I think they could have put somebody else in that right wing role and just kept Adama behind them because Adama can do the tracking back for defence. Or you just forget, or you just scrap a right back, a right wing back, and a right winger altogether, and you just play Adama Traore as your full right hand side. He's got the pace and the strength and the leg work for it.
But they had the spending habits. For example, they got Raul Jimenez in on loan, and when they made that buy option permanent and they signed him, but it was for relatively big money, wasn't it? I don't think it was cheap. I want to say
it was 2 years before a year or two before Juventus first rumoured interest in him. I thought Man United or Juventus were going to sign him, to be fair. I really wanted him at Man United. I really did.
But he had Jimenez, but if Jimenez was injured, they were playing like the likes of Jota in that position because of the fact that the other strikers they had in the team was Bonatini, who was not of any quality.
He also had out of form, but still very good to watch, Neto. You still had Podence as well. They had some good wingers,
but it was a bit mismatched. They had a few good wingers, like forwards, but they only had like one quality striker. Their midfield was okay.
Solid. It was just
the centre back options were good in like Roman Saiz and Dendonka were midfielders primarily. They were fed into the back three because there were no other options. Yeah. So it was almost mismatched spending.
And that's what set them apart. That's what set them back. And they deserve it.
I think Nuno should come back. I'd like to see Nuno back in the Premier League, but I don't think that's the right job for him.
I don't think he'll go Newcastle. I'm not saying he'll go Newcastle. I just think it's bizarre, but it's something they would do. But I think their next manager will either be Simeone or Mourinho. Like I'm sure of that.
I'd be fascinated to see Conte in there.
I don't know.
I don't think he will, but
I'd
be fascinated to put him on the shortlist.
I think he'll be in Italy very, very soon, especially with Garcia gone.
Yeah,
potentially another one going soon as well.
Mm-hmm.
But another team that really needs to be under the microscope for poor performances, because it's been a couple of months since they've actually won a Premier League game, is Brighton.
Yep.
They haven't won a Premier League game. They haven't won a Premier League match in 2 months.
That is interesting.
No, that is damn right shocking. Even though they're turning up in Europe, that's 2 months for a win. It's a good manager and a good side, but they're struggling.
Yeah, but we were always going to see that, weren't we? We always get where the team. True. I was going to say to an extent where the team will turn up in Europe but not in the league, but still questions need to be asked.
I think with Brighton in particular, we've seen it too many times before that teams that really possess it well on the counter attack, like Sheffield United, they played them at the complete wrong time. Like, I don't know why I played it safe with a Brighton prediction, but I always thought that Sheffield United could get a tune out of them. And boy, they did on the counter-attack, vulnerable at the back, panicked. They panicked way too much on the break. And ultimately, that's where the goals come from. And you could just see it with the amount of chances that Sheffield United took and the mistake from Webster to give them the goal. Like, fair play to them. But the form that Brighton are coming into, they badly need a win to get them to. They had a good start, but they're falling apart. And they need to rebuild to get that confidence back.
Absolutely. And coincidentally, a team that handed them their first defeat of the season had another good result of the weekend in West Ham. Are West Ham proving that David Moyes can still stay in the league? Or is it still the right decision to move him?
I think it's...
It's
I think
interesting
it's too early to call one. They had a really poor start to the season, but it is starting to click again now. And I think you really need to... It sort of needs to be played at where West Ham are at the end of the season and then make a decision from there. Because at the end of the day, you're still getting them to do well in Europe. They're now grinding out results again in the Premier League, ultimately after a slow start, which they always seem to have season after season after season. It's whether they don't do what they did last year and stick all their eggs in one basket in Europe. They're in the Europa League this time. They can't do it.
I completely agree with you. Because that's not even just a basket. That's a hornet's nest.
Exactly. And in addition to that as well, they have a much better squad now that is equipped to compete in both, unlike last season, because they now have the depth as well. And bearing in mind, they could probably invest even more in January. So it's a case of now is the time to really push on. This team, this is one of the best West Ham teams. Well, obviously I've ever seen, but...
Yeah, same.
By an absolute mile, they have to go for it now.
For sure. Julio.
Yeah. I don't know.
I was going to say, because I've just gave Nathan West Ham, discuss Brighton.
You want me to discuss Brighton?
I'm going to give you Man United. I'm going to give you Man United and Liverpool from both their performances in contrast against the lesser opposition. Start with Liverpool versus Brentford.
Well, this is what I mean. I'm not convinced by Liverpool this season. I still think they're vulnerable in midfield. I know they had a massive restructure in midfield, but
you're spot on.
I still think that if Liverpool drew 4-4 with City, it wouldn't surprise me. It reminds me a little bit when they used to do the rock and roll football back when Klopp first came in the sense of we'll have to outscore the opponent because something's not right somewhere.
We know it now. It's definitely that midfield.
Yeah, you sign Endo, who can play in holding midfield, but I don't think that was his primary position. So I could be wrong on that one, but I'm just not convinced. Liverpool got the win. They've got their franchise player in Salah doing the goods as expected. Are they going to be able to continue it? Maybe throughout the season. I think they will get top 4 based on players turning up in big moments because they're winning games. That's what you can say about this Liverpool team now that you couldn't say when Klopp first came in. They could play well but not be able to grind out results.
Yeah.
But ever since they beat City 4-3 5 years ago, almost 6 now, Christ almighty. Ever since then, they've gone from strength to strength. In their title-winning season, they had that mentality where they could grind out results. I remember the 2-1 win away to Villa. They were 1-1 until the last 5 minutes, and then I think Mane popped up with the winning goal. I don't think they were particularly good that day.
Yes.
So my point is that from there, even though Liverpool have had 2 shit show seasons in the last few years, they still have that mentality where they can grind out, they can get results, not grind out necessarily, they can get results. Brentford isn't much to shout about, but just because the fact that even though they're a good team, they're not looking like themselves like they were last season. I think when they came to Old Trafford, I think they didn't have a very good record. Can't remember what their record is exactly, but it'll be interesting to see how the season pans out for them. I think they'll be fine this season, but if they sell Ivan Toney, they need to reinvest that money wisely, which I have faith they can do. But when you're looking for a striker who's going to get you the goals that Tony has, me and Nathan were discussing just before we went live about how the game for transfers of strikers, that poker game is very different to what it would have been 10 years ago. If you're a team coming up, for
100%.
example, if you're a team in January fighting for promotion or team fighting relegation, you could find a bench striker from a team in mid-table, nab him for a few million quid, and he could keep you up. There isn't that luxury of strikers anymore. The same problem in the summer. United went for potential over proven in Harry Kane, but they got Højlund instead. But when you look at other strikers of the same money as Højlund, there was no one else that was any more convincing. In terms of Kolo Muani, he was not convincing for 80 million quid. Gonçalo Ramos, his stock went up after the World Cup because of that hat-trick. But not much. Good striker, and I think he will become a good striker, but he needed, in my opinion, another year at Benfica to develop. So there isn't that luxury of strikers anymore, because even when Chelsea spent 100 million on Lukaku, that still didn't, even though Lukaku got 15 goals for that season, when you look at how it happened, it wasn't that convincing. So Liverpool, I think, can get top four, because I think that they've got the players to do it, but they're not challenging for anything. I think for United, for example, a win is a win. That's all I'm going to say, because that's all I can really say on it, because I think we had the chances to make it a 2-0, 3-0 win. We just could not take them. And I don't want to go into anything to do with the style of play or the manager or the board or whatever, because it's the same shit just every week.
Yeah.
We're grinding out results. Forget that we're the most informed team last few games, because that doesn't mean anything. With all due respect, we're in sixth place by getting 2 last-minute goals against Brentford, by beating Fulham in the end of the game 1-0, by Victor Lindelof, of all people, scoring the winning goal halfway through the game to win us a 1-0 against Luton Town, with all due respect.
Who were the better side as well?
Exactly. I think I've said before on this show and other shows that what we're seeing now is reminiscent of Louis' second season. And I think to an extent, Ollie's second full season. I think there was a period during Ollie's second season where this was between the time of the 6-1 at Spurs and I want to say just December, November time, where we were winning some games, but we were losing some games. And the games, for example, we beat West Bromwich Albion 1-0 just from a Bruno Fernandes penalty. We weren't convincing then either. Under Louis, we went for a long time without really scoring, and that's all I'm going to say we are reminiscent of. People were questioning style of play then as well, I believe. There was formation changes at the time. Louis was testing between a 4-3-3. There was, I think, the second half against Leicester. I think he went to a 3-5-2. It was a 4-2-3-1 in there. Ollie tried the diamond formation at one point, trying to get Fred, McTominay, Pogba and Bruno playing together, because there was no obvious holding midfielder who could play every game. So there were issues as well, I think, with squad numbers, especially under Louis. So I just think that we're in a difficult period right now. We can hope that we can get results. I do worry for Ten Hag to an extent, because in Jose's final few months, he was still getting some results. But we played Liverpool at Anfield the same weekend he did, and he got sacked as a result. And the more as each week goes by, because I believe it will be the same week the Champions League group is finalised. And I worry that I hope the board stick with Ten Hag, but I also hope Ten Hag forgets adapting, starts implementing his style of play. Some of these aren't, you gotta get your method into the system. Do the my way or the highway thing. Don't adapt to certain player needs in a way. Do you know what I mean? If this player can't play it, we'll still play him through it, and then he can go next summer if he's not good enough. So I don't know. Like, there's nothing really I can say that hasn't already been said. So it's really
That's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said word for word on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Well, I didn't say bin all the players, and you said bin off all the players, which was a fair statement to make.
I just speak a harsh truth.
Mm.
I'm sick of fan favourites. Like from now on, like none of them are that to me. I don't care anymore about them.
Absolutely well said.
I worry that if you start playing people you trust, I worry that might signal the end. Just because Jose's final game, the lineup he had was very much these are my guys. I trust the midfield having Herrera, Matic, and I know Fellaini came on. I can't remember who else finished that midfield. I don't know if it was Mata or Fred. There was no Pogba for certain. There's a back four of Young, Bailly, Lindelof, and Darmian. And then you had Lukaku and Lingard up front somewhere. So, I just worry that when you're starting players that you solely trust over what you want to do, over who you want to actually play, I worry that it's telling, but I don't know. It's almost like we've got to take each week as it comes.
Well, I'll tell you right now exactly who his final lineup was. December 16th, 2018. It was Lingard that scored for United,
Yeah.
of course. So
De
our
Gea in goal
team-
was a given.
but we played a 4-4-1-1. Funnily enough, so did Liverpool as well in that game.
We
Liverpool
played
did as well.
Delo in like wing on the wing that day, didn't we?
But it was De Gea, Darmian, Bailly, Lindelof, Young, Dalot, Herrera, Matic, Rashford, Lingard, Lukaku. Liverpool
I was pretty close actually. Jesus.
Yep.
Mhm.
Liverpool was Alisson, Klein, Lovren, Van Dijk, Robertson. Back four, but midfield four of Sadio Mane, Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Naby Keita, Firmino in the 10 role, Mohamed Salah up front. Even the benches were ridiculous. I mean, Liverpool was.
Can you name
Henderson,
that midfield again for me, please?
for who?
For Liverpool.
Mane, Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Keita.
Very much a Klopp midfield. United's team, granted, I think
Bar Dalot in midfield is pretty much a Mourinho midfield. Even though it's Rashford, I did agree he did play for him. But when you look
I was
at
just thinking in terms of signings, you had Lukaku, Delo, Bailly, Lindelof, and Matic.
But when you-
5
but when you-
signings.
but when you look at benches, it really set the stone. So Henderson, Shaqiri, Sturridge, Moreno, Lallana, Mignolet, Camacho. Liverpool only made 2 changes. That was Henderson and Shaqiri. And Shaqiri scored twice.
Yeah.
Shaqiri scored twice. Man United was Mata, Martial, Fellaini, Jones, Pogba, Romero, Valencia. I'm surprised of all players that actually started on that bench, Antonio Valencia was one of them. But Mata, Martial, Fellaini were the players that came on for Man United that day. Genuinely horrific performance, but it's set in tone. That was
That
it.
bench on paper is better than Liverpool's. Names, individual names. You could
It is.
argue.
It is. But when you're conceding 36 shots at Anfield,
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
and 11 of them were on target, to Man United having 6 shots, is where it really says the tone.
Ferocious.
I mean, that just sums up where they're at. It's just generally so bad.
Yeah, I don't like the media narrative around United in some way. Just with the fact that like loads of other teams lost or drew this weekend, and people will focus on United and what United did. I don't like that at all. I think that we're in the middle of a process, and I think we just need to see how it plays out. That's literally all I can say right now. I don't have an answer. I could sit here and talk about the boardroom. You hope Ratcliffe comes in and goes, all right, you out, you in, and it's best in class in terms of their roles. I'm not saying they're going to be the savior, because I think there's a lot more to fix than just the boardroom. But I just think that
I think we should just. I think
all we
that's
can
the
do is
easiest.
just watch, just sit
They're
back
the-
and watch how it plays out. That's literally all we can do.
They're the easiest conversations when the conversation is should matter is this, regardless of the situations above board, on the field, nobody's just doing their jobs. Regardless, and it's not working from the manager's sense either, because he's not learning from past mistakes. It's just a recurrent, repetitive, and dismissive cycle. That's where we're at. Regardless of the situation at the club, any club, even with a toxic owner, a manager can still thrive with his players if he gets the players on side and they play his football. Again, it's not working at United. It's failing again. So that's based that situation. Now that's just where I'm at. That's a telling point. Last thing, genuinely Premier League thing. Obviously, the last thing obviously is a big. We'll just quickly say a big one for Arsenal.
Yeah.
That's another big one for them. They're pushing on, so they're forcing their way across, which is interesting. Everton.
Another solid win.
Yep, exactly. So that's
really
telling.
happy with that. I think Sean
That's-
Dyche is pulling strings with what he's got, and
He's doing an excellent job.
he's doing good there. Yeah.
And the last thing as well is officially, as of November. Did they play on Saturday? Did they play on Sunday? Either way, as of November 11th or November 12th, 2023, Tottenham Hotspur's Premier League title charge is officially over. Because the injuries to Maddison, Van de Ven, and now back-to-back defeats have ruined Tottenham.
Plus the
Agree?
suspension of
Completely
Romero.
agree.
Yeah, of course. I already said earlier that Spurs have their first 11, and that's all they've got right now. When you lose Van de Ven and Romero, and you're having to rely on the likes of Eric Dyer to come in and play a high line.
Losing Maddison was I think Romero's
The
a big
way
one,
that Maddison has started this season as well, like that's
And
terminal for a season.
especially for Son. Son has been fantastic with him. But Van de Ven has probably been the best centre back in the league so far this season. That's the biggest loss of that team.
I agree.
Bar Maddison. That's where we're at. Right, so we got about 40 minutes left of the pod. So I'm thinking now we're going to do about 15 minutes on VAR. But 10-15 minutes on VAR, give or take, because we're all sick and tired of it. But there was some decisions across the board. Premier League, across Europe, and obviously up here as well. There's 2 VAR decisions up in Scotland that involve both Old Firm clubs. First of all, I'm going to say this, that was never a penalty, Rangers versus Livingston. I'm just going to say across the board, that wasn't a penalty. That's the inexperience of Ross McCausland as a young lad. He has dived there, and a penalty was given. I still think Rangers would have beaten Livingston anyway, because they were well on top of the game. They did have a goal rightfully disallowed, Rangers. The Dessers goal was deservedly so ruled out, but that was not a penalty, that's a dive. Secondly, the Celtic game, that is definitely a penalty for Kyogo. How that wasn't given, I do not know. But even as a fan, obviously it was good to see them not get a penalty. Not that it fucking mattered anyway, because they won 5-0. Well, 6-0. It makes no fucking difference. But it was a penalty. But that sets the tone. So there you go. I am unbiased. People think I'm biased, but I'm very unbiased.
Yeah.
there was numerous decisions in the Man United Luton game, obviously, for and against. Not that I really want to bring them up, but I think there is a cause for concern where we're not going to discuss the actual issues with surrounding VAR. Well, to a degree, that what we've actually seen decision-wise, but the narrative that certain clubs get favourite treatment is becoming a fickle sheep mentality, because people assume that Man United get biased by referees and VAR when we get less decisions. We've had the lowest amount in the Premier League for about 2 years. Not that I'm not asking to get a penalty or whatever every flaming game. I'm not doing that. But since that Jurgen Klopp press conference, Liverpool have went to the top of the decisions situation. Liverpool, Man City, and all that are the top of that. Man United are right at the bottom. But apparently, we are the biggest benefit. It's clearly just showing that people don't watch games. It's
And
just because
in
it's
addition
just
to
Man
that
United.
as well, they're just biting on the fact, oh, there's a shocking decision, right? Let's just blame it on the narrative that certain clubs are getting favouritism. You've got to look at it in the way that, with how atrocious the refereeing and decision making has been, in particular, I'd say the last 3 to 4 years, and also you've got to bring into it as well the year before VAR was implemented in 1819. It has been proven to be an across the board thing.
It has.
Now, it may be that certain clubs have had more decisions go against them than others, but at the end of the day, mutually, it's across the board, and you can't deny that. And I think that, and we'll get onto it in a bit with the reforms that's needed, etc., but across the board, it's scandalous.
It is. It is. And, excuse me as well, another thing that was very interesting is the difference we've seen in Europe this week. So, there's a decision in... So obviously there was some questionable decisions in the Man United game against Copenhagen.
Yep.
Funnily enough, which was a fucking joke. Now, a lot of people are trying to say this is not a red card. A lot of people are trying to say this is a red card. I completely agree with the decision to send off Marcus Rashford. Because whether you like it or not, whether you want to hurt the player or you don't want to hurt the player, if you're going to shield the ball and you put your foot in that angle, no matter what happens, it's dangerous play. Whether you don't want to hurt someone or not, it's dangerous play. That is a red card.
I mean, and personally, I think, and we've seen this a lot with VAR and referees, etc. I don't think they're following the blanket laws and the actual rule book of football right to the T. I think they're overthinking it way too much, saying, "Oh, is he doing it maliciously? Is he doing this? Is he doing that?" No, studs up means red card. Your last man, you take a player down, red card.
Yeah, whether you want, whether you're trying or not,
it needs to be more black and white, personally, for me.
Yeah, and we can clearly see that.
And there's too much overthinking.
Yeah, and we can clearly see that Rashford, the way he's actually tried to get that, he's in full control of the situation, which is quite ironic, even though he gets sent off. He's in full control, but yet he has stomped on the player's ankle in the foot area. If that had been any worse, he could have broke that leg.
Absolutely.
That might sound like an overreaction because it's a Man United player, but it can happen. We've seen it before.
And black and white in the law book, that's a red card.
Yeah.
Like, there's no debate for a yellow. Like, I don't understand. Like, I know there's going to be bias from certain people, but for me, there's absolutely no debate on it.
But what I won't defend is a first time. What I won't defend is that was never a penalty on Harry Maguire either. That was never a penalty. He is very unlucky by the rules of the game, but that is never a penalty. And furthermore, that goal for Copenhagen, their first goal, the player that didn't even shoot, there's a player in the box behind the defensive line blocking the goalkeeper in an offside position. And how is that being given? How is that given?
I think with the goalkeeper blocking incidents, and we have seen a large number of them this year, and one's obviously we've had one at Cardiff as well this season.
We've seen De Gea get blocked. We've seen Onana being blocked, and goals haven't been given.
Absolutely, I think it's those sorts of decisions are way too inconsistent for me, and I think that, and it goes back
not to mention McTominay's free kick as well.
Yeah, that was another diabolical one. I think that FIFA needs to step in now and really make this more transparent with the law, because at the moment the referees don't know what to give, and it's clear as day you can see that. And there's so many things that at the end of it's the rule book that is the problem now.
Yeah,
with some of the decisions seeking through, like you do get all the incompetence, and that's just another debate for another time. But in this scenario, I think that FIFA needs to go back and re-tighten up the rules and just be more transparent, because we all know the referees can't make a decision.
No, they can't. They're useless.
It needs to be that. It needs to be yes or no in each certain situation. We're not getting that. We're just getting the overthinking.
Yeah, I completely agree. Julio, obviously you are a ref defender, wet boy. What's your take on it? Is there anything that we've said tonight from your own personal perspective that either you agree or disagree with?
I mean, what I will say is that VAR needs to go back to clear and obvious. If you can't tell what it is from normal speed replay, give the benefit of the doubt the on field. You think of like offside decisions, like the most obvious ones that needed VAR, for example, was, let's say, Drogba's offside goal at Old Trafford in 2010, right? You can clearly see on a normal timed replay, clear and obvious, because there needs to be a margin of error. There's human error. Of course, there's a margin of error.
And that's normal.
But the thing that I will say, though, is you can accept human error, but I think there is way too much human error at the moment.
No,
and
of course.
On top of that as well, it's not just like human error on the odds. Say, for example, ball going out of play and then it goes to the wrong team, etc., etc. It's these game-changing decisions where human error is coming in too much that we've seen since 17,
that's
18,
why
18,
VAR
19,
was brought in. VAR was brought in to stop human error at an astronomical level for clear and obvious, not marginal error like I wear a size 9, he wears a size 8.5, therefore I'm offside. So I just think that this was an analogy I saw interpreted today on YouTube. But it's do you know what I mean? We don't need your protractors. We don't need your close lines unless it's something really significant. But I think for offside, there needs to clear and obvious. And I think if you can't see from a few replays, because there's also the timing as well. It'll take 2 minutes. We get lots of added time from VAR because they take too long with it. I think they should go back to basics, go clear and obvious. Did we miss that? Let's quickly look at a replay. Let's have a look there. He looks about offside. That's actually an offside. Wrong call from the referee.
It should be a minute to 90 seconds, no more.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, it should be a minute to a minute and a half.
I think that you cannot, and well, even the referees on the field don't see it in slow motion. Why should VAR? Like that, the thing is slowing down replays, speeding it up.
VAR is supposed to be in the system.
Yeah,
it's supposed to see clear and obvious. I disagree with VAR's input for Rashford sending off, only because I don't think it was clear and obvious to not send him off, simply because, apart from the fact that no one complained about it when it happened, do you know what I mean? Like, stepping on someone by accident happens in any level of football.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's the way he stepped. It's the way it's happened, unfortunately.
It's the way it's happened, which I've always been of the opinion that if you're putting your studs on someone else's foot, you're asking for trouble. But I just think that if you're going to clear and obvious, I don't think not sending him off was a clear and obvious error. Whereas Casemiro getting sent off against Southampton last season, for example, VAR didn't get involved because it wasn't clear and obvious when it was more clearer. And then the night after Rashford got sent off, Liverpool had an exact same scenario and nothing happened to Endo. So it almost
agree.
seems like these days, United are in games and whatever happening with them in terms of a scenario happens elsewhere, but they're almost a litmus test to see what should and shouldn't be done, and everyone else is just following it afterwards. That's a common theme recently. So listen, I'm
And
not
it's
going to
wrong.
sit here and say I'm a defender of referees. I'm going to say it more as like I try and bring a fair judgment into it. But I've always been of the case that you can't trust these officials with this level of technology. They spent so much money on it. It's going to be here to stay. You want to get it right. You start bringing in the best people for the role because these guys just aren't good enough for it.
And not only that, they use actual match officials to run this VAR. Like the biggest, and look how many referees have been demoted to the championship this season. There's your example. Like the funniest one has got to be Bobby Madley. I'm sorry, but how has he not been relieved of his duties yet? Considering what
could
he's
there be a
done
numbers
this
issue?
season, it very well could be. But then
I
again,
don't think enough referees are
even
going
more
into the
alarming.
game. I don't think enough referees are going into the game or getting the necessary badges and level needed to officiate a Premier League match because I think they see all the criticism referees get and people are like, well, I don't want a bit of that.
Yeah. But on
And
top
rightfully
of that,
so as well.
it is a good point. But ultimately, on top of that, there has to be a standard that has to be kept. And the fact that we're seeing the amount of referees not able to thing, and then they're getting demoted to the championship, making the championship and lower leagues even worse, is sort of like, oh, you're not doing a good enough job, right? You're being downgraded to championship and League One matches. Well, that's just going to, A, not the confidence of the referee, and B, allow them to make even worse decisions. Madley coming down from the Premier League straight away, and same with the person who was on VAR to come into, I think, was it Madley? I can't remember at the moment, but
I don't know.
the official, I forgot who it was now. The official for Cardiff City, Bristol City, with a pass back, for example. That was absolutely astonishing. And then also you had the absolute. I know I'm good. I'm going to give him this as well, but that decision on Jamalo in the Swansea match, where that should have been given as a penalty and wasn't, yet the referee was stood right in front. It's just these constant errors of judgment, and like it's just at a point where it's gone beyond some of these decisions now. And I know it's bad blasting the referees, but
we have
at
to.
the end of the day, you have to, because it's like it's extremely rare that you actually think on any match now, oh, that referee has actually had a good game across the board.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. We're going to put Nathan in solo because Nathan's going to get a bit of time to discuss Cardiff. So me and Julio are going to sit in the background and just enjoy this wild carnage. So, Nathan, over to you to discuss Cardiff.
And I'm going to be smug. Because, right, going into this one against Norwich, so much confidence. Concedes very early on. Absolutely shocking goal. Defensively, just all over the place. Josh Bowler brings it back, scores an open goal. Fantastic. Callum Robinson scores further on later on. 43rd minute. Fantastic yet again. Gets us 2-1 up. At this point, I think, okay, we finished the hoodoo. We're actually playing really well. Really grew into the game in the second half as well. Using our chances well. NG, who obviously was that injured before the match. Okay, I knew he was going to be a massive loss, but the likes of Riles, in particular, Bowler had a great start to the game. Yaku Mete was filling in well as well. The centre-back partnership was working too. Then along comes the second half, and straight away, about 65th minute, we sort of abandon it, bringing on both Cobble and Tanner. Straight away from there, we let Norwich completely change the game. They changed their system. We failed to adapt. Atete and Wintle come on. Straight away, Ryan Wintle scores an own goal. Really poor defending from a corner yet again. How many corners are we conceding this season? in particular from a position where we are the better team, and we can see the position and the lead. It has happened way too much. Then that brings it back to 2-2. 2 minutes later, defense drops again. Another mistake at the back. So many individual mistakes this season. Edar gets the winning goal. Struggles to fight back for the rest of the game. Players booed off. It wasn't the players who was booed off at halftime. It was the absolutely shocking referee. And boy, it was the worst refereeing performance I've seen this season, and it even tops the seven-side derby one. Constant mistakes. Linesmen just not doing anything. Flagging late. Struggling to make a decision. Parts of the game, in particular, there was one, I think when, was it Norwich were flagged off for an offside after they'd taken the corner? Referee had the ball in her hands for about a minute and a half. No idea what to do. Like, this has to stop. And that, I think that did affect the tempo of the game a lot as well. But yeah, for me, that was 3 points dropped at the weekend. It was a really poor performance at the end. Individual errors, which have plagued us for the last 3 to 4 years. Once again, costing us on top of that. Bullet, in his post-match press conference, he showed his disdain. And he just basically alluded that they completely wasn't acceptable and changes were needed. Like, what happened between that amazing Huddersfield performance where we absolutely destroyed them to getting turned over by Norwich, who haven't won in 6, and that should have been David Wagner's last game. And even their fans still want him out. They see it as a good 3 points to pick up, but they're not seeing it as a success. They just see it as picking up 3 points against a team who just collapsed and really put in a poor performance. If we want to maintain that top 10 position, we've really got to cut out these individual errors. And I've been saying this for years, and it just doesn't happen. And we have the quality of pockets in the squad. It's just the constant mistakes that cost us all the time, and also the same from these set pieces, which we just can't seem to defend and get too complacent when holding a lead as well. But we have to spend money in January if we really want to knock on. And now is really the opportunity that Vincent Tan shows us. And I don't know how much money is available that we have to spend, because we all know the issues off the pitch. But we either spend and show ambition, or we don't spend and get stuck where we were where we have been for the last 5 years. Mediocrity, relegation battles, carnage off the pitch. We've brought it back, especially with the appointment of Bullet and some great players over the summer, but we've got to maintain it. And that's a difficult thing to do.
Do you know what I find interesting? From a business point of view, I can see a scenario where he decides, let's see if we can get someone from somewhere with a good record. Because, like, what's a couple of million to me when it could be 150 in 6 months' time?
Absolutely.
If it was via the playoffs. Now, I don't know, a name that popped into my head randomly, for example, was a Josh King, for example, someone of that ilk, someone experienced who, I don't think he'll make a free transfer, but someone who could come in, shock everyone of that kind of transfer.
And that's what we've been waiting for. Because bearing in mind that January is the first time, I think, since about 2021, maybe early 2022, that we've actually had the opportunity to spend money. Because for the last 2-3 windows, it has been free transfers because of the embargo.
It wouldn't surprise me if
cost us. But even then, with what we've been doing since we've been, and I will say in particular, since we come down from the Premier League, it's probably been a good thing that we haven't been able to sign players this summer. Because we have shown time and time again that with the refusal to put football in knowledge upstairs, we should not be allowed to sign players.
Absolutely.
Because aside from Kiefer Moore going to Bournemouth, when was the last time we made a good profit on a player?
Good point.
Never.
To be fair, Moore might be a signing you guys make. It could be a loan signing with an obligation to buy.
Apparently we're going to buy, or we're going to push to buy in January.
I'd find it hard to believe. I think Bournemouth would ask for quite a bit of money you don't have.
True.
But if you get more in, it could be the transfer that propels you up a notch, because you need that presence up front. You don't have that. Your version of CR7, I could literally put a Cardiff kit tomorrow and probably put a more of an output than the CR7 that you guys have.
I mean, in the way that we've been rotating it with the likes of Ugbo, Grant, Mate, etc., and I said it many a time, Grant in some scenario has actually been decent, but we've seen too many times, in particular the last 6 matches, where he has been deer in headlights, especially when he's been up front on his own. And to be honest, that has to be cut out. And I'd even go back to as far, and I know this is extremely controversial because we've used up all 5 of our loan slots.
Yep.
Colin Grant gets sent back in January.
Mm.
And we try again and make a gamble for another striker. Because for me, it's not working.
But you need that other loan sorted first before you can say, right, Colin Grant, thank you for 6 months you've been here. You've been terrible, or you've been half decent, but you're going back. Is Lewis Graben available? He loves a January transfer.
He loves a January transfer, but I don't think he fit in the system.
Who could fit in the system?
It's difficult. Because for me, we need someone who is great from a low ball cross. Who can really...
poacher, almost.
Yeah, it's desperately need a poacher. Especially someone who can fit in the channels, is good on their feet. And another aspect is that we've missed a lot as well, is someone who's good on their feet that can hold up the ball. And if there's any mistakes, or if there's not an opportunity to take a shot, bring it back and utilize the midfield. Because when Ramsey returns from injury, feed it back to him and allow the creativity to the likes of Josh Bowler and Callum Robinson as well. Allow those players to generate too. And even then, if he's used as well, because at the moment he's been played off the bench, Ruben Cobble's creativity and his finesse as well. In fact, he's 6'5" now. I'd maybe even say bite the bullet and try Ruben Cole as striker, because he has the potential to be an absolute monster. Like, if he learns how to consistently score headers, that's a scary player. Especially in the Championship as well, and at 21 with that height, and also with that talent on the ball as well. That would be incredible.
It might also be worth, I think what your January transfer window will consist of is either free transfer, someone proven, or someone proven from anywhere, whether it's like a Kiefer Moore, for example, or a Josh King, for example, in some aspects. Or they look at whose contract is running out in the summer from one of the lower clubs, who's probably going to be looking for a way out. Similar, we've seen this before, give someone lower down the league whose contract's running out in the summer a way out early. Because I guarantee you there'll be someone itching to jump ship. They just haven't been fed the bait yet.
I think so. Another thing that I will say is, aside from Kiefer Moore, drew pretty much the entirety of when Tan's been in charge, and I'll give the odd exception to the likes of Fraser Campbell. Another one also, Kenny Miller's was really good when he was at City as well, got us to a cup final. Nicky Maynard filled in when he was well. What I will say is that
Kenwyn Jones was the best January signing of all time. I 100% agree.
All I'll say is Brentford away. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
What about experienced strikers like Martin Vaghorn, for example? Obviously, it's a Rangers striker. We know you're saying no, but it's an experienced striker.
It is an experienced striker, but I think that with what the club are aiming for now, it is a change of approach.
It is.
What I was really going to allude to is that UK-based strikers have really struggled at the club, in particular in the last 10 years. Aside from the Kiefer Moores and etc. But even then,
because the environment's never been healthy for a British striker, which is weird.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, why would you want to go to Wales? Terrible.
It's not that it's a bad thing. I mean, at times Scotland is just as bad. Always shit weather, but you get competitive football.
It's
to a
just with the
degree.
way that with some of our managers and how they play the system as well, and the fact that mostly we've had a strong midfield and winger base, in particular winger base as well.
Yeah. If you had to
And
pick
how that's
five
developed over time.
if you had to pick 5 strikers from the UK on a realistic budget that you think could work at Cardiff, 5 strikers to narrow it down from, who would you go? Because I reckon for a mad one, I would say Shankland.
Possibly.
He's another one. But the mad thing is, those bastards have already told Rangers if Rangers want Shankland, it'll cost them 5 million. And Rangers have went, you can fuck yourselves.
Now, the
But he's still
thing
a
that I
quality
will
striker.
say, though, is with Tan's desperation to get back in the Premier League, and we all know why he wants us up as soon as possible,
Money.
and the fact he
Fast.
wants to sell.
He's breaking bank fast. He is breaking
Yes.
bank.
I think that we might see a bit of risk in January.
Go on. What are you thinking?
Kiefer Moore's on the list.
Will Grigg.
Will Grigg, no, I can't see.
No,
he
I mean,
he
when
wants
you look
players,
at,
not Will Grigg.
can I be honest with you though? Will Grigg's £3 million Sunderland move.
Hasn't worked.
I think we could see something like that with Tan.
Potentially.
Desperation means overpaying. I don't know if like the Scott Hogans of the world and the Gallaghers
That
of the
would be a
world,
good move.
championships players, but would they leave their
Hogan
current
could be
clubs?
Hogan could
There
be
is-
good, but I
Who's
think that
Who's linked with a move
He's a
away?
good player. He's a good player. There's another striker, funnily enough, I haven't seen play in the Championship for a while, so I don't know where he is. But, mind you, just because he's Scottish, so hey ho. I haven't seen Jordan Rhodes for quite a while. And he used to be just generally a good striker to have. I don't even know what's happened to him. I was like, why not Jordan Rhodes? He's
Yeah,
only
we've been-
early. He's
we
early
have been
30s.
linked with. We
He's
have
at
been linked with him
Blackpool on
before.
loan.
He's a Blackpool. I
On
haven't
loan
seen him
from
play.
Huddersfield.
I
But
haven't
would-
seen him play for a while, but I like
There
Jordan
is-
Rhodes
Could a deal be struck because
or Stevie
Blackpool
May.
are in League One?
Hmm.
Could a deal be done with Huddersfield? Be like, listen, we're championship. We want your striker. Yeah, tell him to bin off Blackpool. He doesn't really want. Do you know what I mean? Because
thing
we've
that
seen those
worries
kind
me,
of deals
though,
happen
is-
before.
But
is
Huddersfield
that-
wouldn't allow a rival to strengthen. That's the thing.
That's
Are they
true.
a rival though?
No, they wouldn't.
But
Well,
no,
technically, yeah, they're rivals for promotion.
in my opinion, like Championship clubs don't really do across league transfers unless there's something major going on,
Hmm.
or if, say, for
Agreed.
example, the premium is spent. But
Mhm.
with Jordan Rhodes, I think quality player.
Yes.
Been obviously been linked with him many a time before as well, pre-Premier League
Step-
days in 2018, etc., etc. But the fact that he can't get into the squad over Danny Ward. Danny Ward scored his goals in the Premier League, but did he score goals consistently for the years he was at the club? Absolutely not. And if Danny Ward doesn't work, and I will unfortunately put him into that category that he didn't work at Cardiff, will Jordan Rhodes work? Absolutely not.
Maybe
What
should
a-
just call
about
just
Stevie
stared out of retirement.
Good nostalgia, to be fair.
Stevie May would be an interesting one.
Stevie May, where's he at?
Would be interesting.
He's back. Last time I saw him, he was back up here. I
He
think
is. He's
Rangers
at St Johnston.
Hmm.
Rangers are. He's went back to St Johnson. I think Rangers are going after. What's his name? It's the Aberdeen boy. Because he kind of gets Shankland, so we're going after the Aberdeen boy. Can't remember his name. Oh. Say a few Aberdeen players to me, and I'll tell you like that. Wait, this one, that one. Can't remember his name. Fuck. He's got a really cool name. It was between Shankland and this lad, obviously Heart striker, but obviously the Aberdeen boy. I'm sure he's the number 10 for Aberdeen. Like kit number 10. What's his name?
How much of a move would it be
I thought Julio was doing a favour and searching for me. Son of a bitch.
Another one that could be a good option as well, but he's going to be worth a lot. Johnson Clark Harris.
Yep.
We've been linked
No
with him
arg-
loads.
No argument there. No argument there. Let's see. There we go. Aberdeen. So I want Shankland, but Rangers are also considering either Miofsky or Duke. And I'm gonna lie, Miofsky would be a fucking banger of a signing. But I think Shankland is. No disrespect to Hearts, but I think Shankland deserves a better move. Rangers won't pay $5 million for him, but frankly, I would. And just put Scotland's potentially next main number 9 in the team. He'll never get picked anyway, but that's good for Rangers. But in hindsight, like just a good striker. If you went for it, I would go for it.
I would
There's
also
so many
say
out there.
another cheap option as well, and I know his contract's up in the summer. Devontae Cole from Barnsley
Yeah.
is another one I think might.
Yeah,
work.
that's the kind of option I was suggesting, in terms of like someone whose contract is running out, who might be itching to go like into a better situation of some kind. I think
Even
you're looking at
Go on.
bottom of Championship or top end League One, I think are the realistic choices. I'm just trying to think, is there any bench options in the Premier League you could steal? Like the Kiefer Moores of the world, you know what I mean?
None, because they
It
can't
could be
afford.
before we go to the Premier League. Go just for Aaron Collins, Bristol Rovers. Would have to.
That would be
We would have to pay about $2.5 million. Could be another Gary Medine risk, but
the question is, like, how far down do you want to go in League One, for example, to make a step up signing, like for the player?
then
you know
again,
what I
I
mean?
think it's the only thing we can do, unless I know we're going to try and go abroad. But if we were to stick to what we've done before, I think
You want someone ideally who would come in and make an impact immediately.
Yeah.
That's why I suggested the likes of Scott Hogan. Not saying Scott Hogan is the guy, but like someone who is experienced in the Championship.
If you want, you can sign the striker who's back in the Uruguay squad for the first time since 2022. That's not even a joke, by the way. One football app has confirmed that Suarez is back in the Uruguay squad at 36 years
Bielsa's
old.
cooking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bielsa is cooking, but I'm quite surprised by that. But on a hindsight, in terms of actual strikers, it's no easy, but there's options.
The thing is, it comes back to what we were saying earlier, Nathan. The luxury of finishers, pure finishers, pure goal scorers, are few and far between. You could literally sign anyone now, and it might not work out. You could sign the top scorer. Who's the top scorer in League One at the minute?
No
idea.
Alfie May of Charlton.
Could sign him, could go wrong. You could sign, I don't know, someone like Adebayo, for example, or Charlie White, and they could do well, they could not. It could go either way, honestly. So I just think that, like, it's going to be a long list, and you ideally would want to go with some. If I was Vincent Tan, I'd be looking at it from this perspective of someone who, if he doesn't, to be honest, if he doesn't want short term, fair enough. I'd personally maybe get 2 strikers in. Someone who's a good age, and like a Waghorn, for example. Someone who's.
I think it's another thing I will say though is someone who was absolutely instrumental, and it was really a success of why I think we should go abroad again for a striker. Is when we had the transfer embargo in 15-16, we used Courteous, which was Tan's other club in Belgium. We were able to get Kenneth Zahor through the door. And look at how instrumental he was in getting us to the Premier League. I mean, inconsistent as anything, but when he was on a run, boy, was he on a run. And you could say he was one of the best strikers in the Championship. Like Brighton wanted him for about £12 million,
They did.
and we still rejected it. I mean, the inconsistency was there, but at the time, we took the gamble, and it massively paid off.
What about Jack Marriott?
No.
No.
The only reason I
no.
suggest his name, is just because I remember
Because you're in
Derby
your players, we
playoffs.
know. Just no.
Okay, but
He's not good enough. Nah, he's not good
I'm
enough.
not saying he's good enough. I'm just thinking of that when he came on for Derby in the playoff final, and then obviously in the playoff semi-finals in 2019. That's the only reason he popped into my head.
I'm trying to think who else generally you can think of, but I'm not sure. Anyway, last 10 minutes, then we're gonna wrap it. So, is there anyone this week on Manager Watch? I'm gonna say straight away the first name is Pioli, and he is definitely time run out after bottling a 2-0 lead to lose to that performance against Lecce. Nearly lost, but obviously the goal was disallowed. But from going 2-0 up through Giroud and Reihinder's first goal for Milan, bottling
For
it.
me, it's a massive
tactics
wake-up
are
call
a
for him.
His
I
tactics
think
are a
has to be.
joke.
Has to be.
From what I've
His
seen, massive complacency is creeping in on it.
He's
Players,
taking his team as far as he can go as well.
yeah,
It's over.
he's at the limit, and for me, he's out before Christmas.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you. I think he's had his opportunities to turn it around. He had some good results, especially the result against PSG, and then immediately after that it goes to shit.
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
it's time to pack it in. It's time to pack him in and say bye. I know Julio tagged me in the tweet yesterday about Pirlo and all that, and I agree with Maldini's statement that maybe it's time to change manager for a different reason. But I don't think Pirlo is the one I would go for. But I like him. Funnily enough, I still stand by the names that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I still stand by the likes of Allegri and De Sherby, all that. The fact that this season alone, Allegri's picked up in his last 7 games, he's picked up 19 points from 21. And I'm like, the fuck is he cooking at Juve again? What is he cooking when he gets so much shit? I think it's time for Milan to go for that, to go back to like a winner type serious manager. But they're losing that Italian identity of Italian players because it's just not as strong.
I think
they need to get that back in. But I think they definitely need a different type of manager now. They're not going to get De Sherby, but he would be in terms of like an attack-minded progressive coach, he would be top of the list. But I think they need a winner like Allegri or something.
Question I'm going to put to the panel: does just moving on slightly, does Vincent Kompany now go onto the list?
No.
To Manager Watch? Yes.
6 losses in a row.
A Manager Watch, 100%. Yeah, he does, and he will be gone soon. I think they'll pull the trigger on him as well. I think you'll see several managers lose their job.
I think they'll keep with him.
I'll be surprised.
I'll be surprised, but I think they'll stick with him even when they go down, and they'll hope he can bring him back up. But if he's back in the Championship, if he starts next season poorly, then I think that's when they pull the trigger.
Yep.
But then again, with 100%. I think Burnley as well, the board have to recognise that he's working with a worse squad than he had last season, regardless of the fact that they spent money.
They'll spend in January. They have to spend in January.
If they don't, in my opinion, if they don't spend, they're going to rebuild again next season, and they'll try and get straight back up.
This conversation about strikers and Premier League clubs, they're one of the clubs that came to our mind where right now they could kill to sign someone's bench striker in mid-table. 100%. The problem is they're few and far between.
I will say that with Burnley as well, there is a lot of players underperforming.
100%.
Yep.
And then we're just going to bring a few more in as well from the Championship. Mark Robbins, can we add him to the list yet? Coventry are diabolical at the moment.
Yeah, they are. They've faded.
or will he be trusted to sign one in January? Because they're another side. I know Ellis Sims coming in the summer, not really made as much of an impact. Losing Gus Hamer as well, him not being replaced. Callum O'Hare's back from injury. He's filling in when he can, but they're still not grinding out the results. Are we talking about, is it a squad issue that they losing key players and not being able to replace them? Or are we looking at a complete disaster for Mark Robbins? Tricky one.
I think they might still give him time just because he has at least
They'll
tried
stick
with
with
them.
him.
But I don't know how long it'll last.
Same can be said about Rooney as well, for me.
Yeah.
With that start. Absolutely shocking.
There's not much more that can be said about the Rooney thing, to be honest. I think it's very telling. Like big name players are getting opportunities that managers in League One probably deserve more because they've worked hard to get to where they are. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
So I think they'll give him to the end of the season, Rooney, because he's just walked in through the door. I don't think the American owners will panic that quickly. But
at the end of the day, they have, well, I wouldn't say it's an elitist ideology, but they're I think they want to implement the philosophy of big names at the club. And we can see that straight off of getting rid of
it's American business model.
It is.
Big names, sell shirts, bring attention to detail, and then it grows and grows. So,
funnily enough, a man that I work with is also a Birmingham fan. Even he was shocked that Rooney got the job. He was like, I didn't want him because his record at MLS was pish.
It was.
Like he was like, I don't want this guy. I want to do stats to stay because he was playing good football. The championship style of football that mattered. Get a goal and make sure defense was solid, and it worked. And they binned him. And he was like, it's backfired on us massively.
And it's not only that as well. They had one of the best transfer windows in the summer.
They did. It's crazy. They've faltered themselves so much, and that's where we're at. That's that Leon's. I'm going to say right now, the most informed manager by far at the moment in terms of getting everything done spot on. The most informed manager is Allegri. So fair play to him for what he's done. Like Juventus are wankers, but he is a good manager for that reason. Last thing as well, I know she's not watching, but I'll still state anyway. Despite favouring Benfica, I prefer Benfica. Obviously, she prefers Sporting. Sporting definitely got robbed last night in the Lisbon derby. For one, referee decisions definitely benefited Benfica, and two, the goal was definitely the first goal was definitely offside. I just wanted to include that as well, just because it was I am fair. On that, gents, any last comments before we wrap up?
Don't think so, to be honest. I think
Nathan, we told you so.
On that one, to everyone that's watched, thank you very much for your comments tonight. It's been amazing. Next week is back to Nathan hosting. I've got a watch along coming up in an hour and 40 minutes, so that's going to be fun on my channel. So if you're into wrestling, obviously I'm doing a watch along. It's starting at 1:45, and I'll be running until 4. So that's going to be a blast. But in the meantime, to everyone that's watching, we've all been an entertaining side.
Fantastic.
And we're going to leave it at that. Thank you all for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the World of Football podcast, and we will see you all next week. Bye for now, folks.
Live on YouTube. And listen back on Spotify. This is the World of Football podcast.